What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis, inspiring us all to feel better, look better, digest losses better when things are 24/7 and it goes south. Skymint is always here for you. If you've got a family gathering this week, Thanksgiving and all, Skymint, trust me, do not attend Thanksgiving with your family without Skymint. And our Monday night show, brought to you by our friends at Muskox High Quality Flannels. Muskox is a Detroit-based men's apparel company that creates durable and high-quality flannels that are built to last a lifetime, just like the one I have on right now. You can learn more at gomuskox.com or purchase yours there. That's GOMUSKOX.com. Get $15 off for Couch and the Rube listeners with the promo code CAW15. That's CAWCAW 15 at gomuskox.com. These are outstanding. I've been practically living in it. Ordered another, have it coming on the way. Done it with some Christmas gifts as well. Absolutely fantastic shirt. Jason, how you doing, man? Hanging in there?
Hey, man. Skymint and Dayquil should get together, and when you're sick, they should have a gummy or something, an edible.
So you don't have to do both?
Well, you can just actually buy the packet of Dayquil and then. But it'd be better if they joined forces for everyone.
You sound okay. You sound remarkably good for a man who is.
Yeah, because I don't have the chest cough thing. I have everything else besides the chest cough.
Okay.
Yeah, and I feel better around 10 o'clock at night for some reason. So
that's a great time.
I mean, last night at 11 o'clock, I was like, shit, I'm ready to go. I could do the show last night, so apologies.
No, I just want you to feel better. And I'm glad we have this glass in between us.
Yeah.
As always. It makes me feel better. Look, Monday night, Sunday night. We used to do these Monday afternoons. We did these Monday mornings for a while.
We used to do these every day during the week.
We did do them 5 days a week.
That doesn't mean it's right.
Does not mean it's right.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of really good hot takes from you guys. I think it's going to be a good show. And a lot's happened. And so let's dig into them, beginning with our hot takes. Jason, you want to go first?
No, man, go ahead.
Okay. So I'll start with Michigan State football.
Boo.
That was a bad loss. It's the sort of loss people don't forget. It's the sort of loss that ruins the vibe of a season. It's kind of a lingering thing. It's the sort of loss that gives a coaching staff a reputation. You can't have too many of those. And I'm not saying that Mel Tucker is – we've got some hot takes that say Mel Tucker's, on the hot seat and those sort of things. That's not reality. But I understand why there's a loss of confidence in things, because you and there are some realistic challenges they're enduring right now in terms of personnel and the number of guys they have and talent and all that jazz. But they were better than Indiana. They had more talent than Indiana. They were in a better headspace than Indiana. And they were up 24-7 against Indiana. And no, it is not easy when you take the field again in the second half and a really good crowd showing has just about all left the stadium. There are people that stayed, and those are hardy souls. But, I think that is deflating. That is hard to have great energy. And Michigan State fans, just pro tip, Irish goodbye early third quarter, much better for your team than having them come back out of the tunnel and be like, whoa, what the fuck? Where'd everybody go?
Immediately?
Well, just, you can slink. Once they're into it, they're not going to notice the crowd as much. It's like that moment when you run out of the tunnel, it's like, oh, people don't care. But really, they're just cold. And the fact that anybody was there at all is pretty amazing.
People would go to that.
Yeah, I would not go to that. No. I wouldn't even, and this is going to sound bad because somebody may have wanted the tickets, but my mother was like, she didn't want to go, and she's like, will you give the tickets away? I'm not going to do that to somebody, Mom. I was like, I'm not giving away
Well, if they want to go, it's on you if you say yes to tickets offered, I guess.
I just didn't want to ask around like I was doing somebody a big favor.
Well, you can throw it out there and say, hey, does anyone want to go to the game? You can use my tickets, my mom's tickets. I mean,
it was also very late notice when she decided.
So you just put them in a shredder.
We'll keep them for
nice
some sort of keepsake or something. But that is that is one of those games. And look, Mel Tucker said a lot of the right things today, and he doesn't sound like somebody who's lost his team. I would expect Michigan State to come out and absolutely compete against Penn State. And in true Michigan State fashion, they may win that game. They're 18-point underdogs, and that's the sort of thing this group would do. But it ruined a lot of good vibes from the season. It took away the feeling. I think people were excited about Michigan State going to a third or fourth tier bowl because they sort of.
Were they?
Well, I think they were. There are years where you're like, why go to a bowl game? This is one of those years where it's like, well, this team was in the depths of hell in the middle of the year. They looked like a team that was going to go 4-8 or 3-9, and they kind of found themselves. And they upset Illinois on the road. They were having a decent November. They beat Wisconsin. This was a team that had shown some character, and so people appreciated that about them. So they were, it's not like you're excited. It's not like you're fired up like you're going to the Rose Bowl, but people will watch the game. People will be interested in the team a little bit.
But what bowl game would people want to travel to and spend money on? I mean, coming off an 11-win season, this is deemed a disappointment, even if they get to 6-6.
Well, the locations, if they had won, I think the locations,
the Bahama Bowl,
were going to be better than Atlanta, Phoenix, or Charlotte. No offense to Atlanta, but Atlanta as a bowl destination kind of sucks.
Who's going to pay a couple $1,000 to go watch this team in a shit bowl? I know there's people that will do it.
Yeah, you're not going for the game itself. I memean, you're going to go to the game, but you're going for the location and to hang out. And it's why not go to Phoenix over Christmas or go to Charlotte? It's warmer than here. I don't know. That would be my argument. But anyway, bad loss that can linger, loss that you have to react to as a coach and a staff in terms of understanding that that's on you. And look, Michigan State's players, you ought to be able to make a 22-yard field goal. It doesn't matter what hash it's on. You ought to be able to get a decent snap to the holder. You ought to be able to pick up some first downs when you need to. You ought to be able to tackle a guy in coverage on a coverage unit and not let a 79-yard run go and not give up 250 yards rushing to Indiana, which has been averaging 61 in Big Ten play. You ought to be able to do all of that. But good coaching can help you. Better coaching, a better day from Michigan State staff gets Michigan State through that game without losing. And I think everybody knows that. I think the staff knows it. And I will be, again, I'm not somebody, I'm very much in the don't fire people now sort of thing. Don't react by always firing people. But I will be surprised if everybody's back next year. I don't think you can come back from this year with some of the mistakes they've made. One of the things Mel Tucker always talks about is the idea that people have to own it. And he's got to own this season. And he's got to own, it's his staff, it's his team. And I think a lot of people, I certainly understand that he does not yet have his players as he'd like to in building the roster. But yet, people can deal with not having the dudes to win certain games. 24-7 up at home against Indiana feels like the end of the D'Antonio era, and this is supposed to be the crescendo of the Mel Tucker era. That stuff doesn't fly.
And are we going to blame injuries?
Well, there
is that
are.
What we're going to put it on?
No. There are the suspension.
I didn't see any of Tucker what he said today. So
the suspensions are legitimate. Jacoby Winmon would have helped in that game where you're not tackling and they're running on you. It absolutely helps. Like they are down bodies. They're not tackling in practice because they really can't afford another injury the last 3 weeks. So there are some, but you had enough to get up 24-7 on Indiana. You had enough to control that game for a long time.
When things go correctly, there's no injury talk. As soon as you shit the bed, it's injuries.
No.
We don't have enough bodies to practice with.
You're facing a quarterback again who was one completion for like 7 yards in regulation. You should not lose that game, and there's zero excuse for it. Now, there are some things. I'll get into this later. All right, your first hot take.
Well, a lot of my hot takes are in what you said earlier, but I just don't think a lot of the fan base. It's the first time that I've heard some of the people that are rational that I talk to about the Michigan State football program are absolutely. They're typing in all caps to me now in the messages. Here's my question, Graham.
Yeah.
I know Mel Tucker is being, fans are saying, and I'm sure I'm going to read a lot of these questions. If Mel Tucker is on the hot seat, it won't happen. He makes too much money. The buyout is too crazy. But the question is, A, is Mel Tucker a good coach? Are we sure? Have we seen it yet? And B, I have a gut feeling. My gut feel is the special teams coach, Ross Els, will be the only one fired in the offseason.
You might be right. You might be right.
And if that's the case, there's going to be a lot of lingering questions in the offseason, Graham.
But you're totally
the way
right.
Jay Johnson's calling the game, like I like Jay Johnson, but sometimes, I mean, he's going to have to. I wish he would come out and explain some of these things like I'm 5 years old to me. I just think there's too many things have gone on in this season where can you really bring all of these guys back, but the special teams? I don't know. I mean, I'm with you. I don't like seeing guys fired, especially for teams that I root for. No one wants to see that. But if you were going to play this big game, this big money football, I think Mel Tucker has to make a statement and say, this is not going to stand. And I don't know if he's going to do that.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see what he does in the offseason. And because there is no real recourse, it'll be his. He's not in a situation like the end of the D'Antonio era where you had people in the athletic department openly thinking like, we may have to intervene here. He's not making moves. With Mel Tucker, it's much more, it's his program. And again, he got rid of Ron. I've said this before and people get sick of it, but he got rid of a really good coach in Ron Burton. So what evidence, and that was after an 11-2 season. So what makes people think that after a probably 5-7 season that he's not going to make some changes? There's zero evidence that he won't.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I understand. It's just a hypothetical and seeing how things have gone. I mean, yeah, people are going to have PTSD with D'Antonio being loyal to his guys, and I don't know if he owes any of these guys anything after the season.
To your first question, is Mel Tucker a good coach?
Yeah.
Good head coach, I should say. Because there are lots of people who are good coordinators, good assistants, good recruiters, have good roles on, but in their own program, are they good coaches? You know, I think the jury is still out in certain ways. He was somebody that Nick Saban thought highly enough of to say you ought to take a look at that guy. And Nick Saban cares about MSU. He would not steer MSU. It's not like this is Auburn who he's competing against every day. He would not steer MSU wrong in that sense, okay? But if you talk to a Chicago Bears fan for the years he was the defensive coordinator there, they'll say no. If you look at last year, which is just a year ago, there was a whole lot of competence and what looked like a guy who knew how to maximize his team and run a really good organization. And then you come a year later and there's all sorts of game management issues. So I think the answer is somewhere in he is a potentially good coach, but he's a flawed coach. And he's a coach who needs help. Like he's a coach who, like probably most coaches, needs to have the right assistants around him, needs to have the right staff. Lots of guys do.
And Nick Saban vouching for him is a big thing, I guess, right?
It is.
Because Saban does vouch for a lot of guys. That guys aren't just good head coaches sometimes. Look at the Belichick tree that goes out there. Are those guys terrible coaches? I don't think so. Are they good head coaches? No. And the reason why you can ask that question, because last year with 11 wins, you said after the season, you're like, how did they win 11 games? And then this season happens. And I know Michigan State had their hands tied and had to make this move. But I don't think just because a guy comes in and making $9.5 million a year makes him a good coach.
No.
I'm just saying, what have you seen so far from the program that you think, I think he's going to do this here?
I mean, I think, well, a couple things. One, I mean, he's still got – let's also look at it this way. They have more 4-stars in the hopper, so to speak, pledged, committed, however you want to call it,
all right,
than they've ever had, ever. Like, that was a big part of why you brought him in, ever. We said, what was over-under was 7, 7.5, something like that. You know, they're going to wind up probably in the teens of 4-star recruits this year. And so if you don't want that, I mean, I'm not saying somebody else couldn't do that, but you tried it the other way. And I'm not saying that going to get another guy who, and maybe there's somebody who's the total package. Maybe there's somebody who's Mel Tucker and Mark D'Antonio mixed, the best of both, right? And the beauty of this, everybody talks about the $9.5 million. You know what the $9.5 million is?
It's a lot of money.
Well, it's sort of like, yeah, but it's ultimately saying it's not just to keep Mel Tucker. It was largely to avoid regret and what would have happened, because we've talked about this before. If Mel Tucker had left to go somewhere else, and again, I'm not sure the level of how serious that stuff was in terms of other interest out there. I think there might have been a little, I don't know.
And the money doesn't bother me either. It just gets brought up all the time.
Right. But if he had left and was somewhere else and some other coach had this roster and the same shit was happening, people would hate him.
Yeah.
And he'd never have a chance. So in certain ways, they're lucky they kept Mel Tucker, because at least it's the guy they paid and he's still there, and you know what's what a little more. Now, the other thing is they'll never pay a coach less than $9.5 million. Bob Stoops at Kentucky, Mark Stoops.
Mark Stoops,
Bob Stoops, all one guy, all Stoops. just got $8.5 million. He coaches the place doesn't even give a shit
and
about.
Lane Kiffin, rumor is he's going to Auburn. They're going to give him a shit ton of money.
I mean, this is the going right now. Michigan State's next head coach will make $9.5 million or more. We're just going to have to get used to that. You may not like it, but this is the world that we live in and choose to operate in. And this is the world they choose to compete in.
Could you say Stoops and Kiffin have done more than Tucker has?
Well,
deserve that kind of money? Sure, you can say that.
Stoops feels like he has a ceiling. What Michigan State is paying for with Mel Tucker is the dream of something more than even D'Antonio could sustain. And the key to that is these recruiting classes this year and next. It's the one that's true freshman now. It's this and next. We'll know after that. I mean, we won't know directly after that because those guys have to permeate the program. But those 3 recruiting classes, the one that's a true freshman class right now, the one that signs in December and February, and the one a year from now, those 3 classes will ultimately decide whether the Mel Tucker era has a chance. Beyond that, though, you've got to be somebody who coaches at a certain level. But if you finally have the dudes, like eventually you got to have the guys where you don't have to be perfect all the time. Because, I mean, he's kind of contradicting himself in the sense that he'll say football is not a game of perfect, and then he'll say we've got to be perfect to win. Well, shit, then you're kind of fucked. You know, like he doesn't have the guys to not be really, really efficient and really, really smart in coaching decisions and play calling and execution and everything. And sometimes the players and sometimes the coaches have fallen short on that front, and there is absolutely no doubt about that. I probably got to my second take there a little bit. The one other thing I wanted to get into was I do think, I think at some point it's getting to the point where it is unfair to have the guys who, or all of the guys who are suspended, still suspended. And I didn't mind the initial approach. You're in a tough spot. You have a situation where you've got video that's very clear to some extent, and some guys need to be suspended. I thought everybody involved that was suspended deserved some level of suspension. And you set up to 2 games. I don't think there's any question. That all seemed reasonable. But you get to a point where the involvement of different guys is to what degree is in question. The schools and the Big Ten have not interviewed these guys. They were interviewed by the police. And I understand the police wanted that to be the case because there's all sorts of attorney-client privilege stuff they did not want when this was coming a criminal matter. The problem is with this whole thing becoming a criminal matter is these guys also are dealing with eligibility clocks that are moving. Some of these guys, I mean, if they're not going to play again this year, you don't get this year back. You know, and I think at some point, if you are, like at this point, if it goes beyond this week, it really doesn't matter anyway. It's a bowl game, it's whatever. But I think it the beginning of this week, and maybe it's happening while we're talking, maybe it will happen, maybe it'll come out by the time you listen to this, that the conversations with the police and with the prosecutor's office and the schools, to some degree, you should have had a better idea. Are there some guys here that we can let back in? You know, because I think they probably have a pretty good idea on a couple of them.
Well, how much longer? Is this investigation still going on?
Yeah. Well, the investigation's over. They've turned it over to the prosecutor's office to make a determination on charges. And the problem is, here's the other thing. It's Thanksgiving week. I think this is going to – and you also got the Michigan-Ohio State game this week. I'm not going to get into that whole conspiracy. They're not going to do it before that. But I do have a problem with Thanksgiving. I have a problem with newspapers with people celebrating holidays. You want to do that? Go work at a bank. We put out 7 papers a week. The internet goes forever. There are no holidays. You're going to work in a prosecutor's office and somebody's life's being held up. You don't do Thanksgiving. Like these are just my little
couch.
These are my pet peeves. It's basically a newspaper pet peeve because I freaking hate when shit didn't happen because of holidays. But
when's the last time you worked on a Thanksgiving?
I'm working this thing. What do you mean? I'm working this thing.
I'm that's right. The game is. Yeah,
I'm covering 2 games on Thanksgiving night. Yeah.
Sorry, it's Dayquil.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's hot in here.
I think I've worked every Thanksgiving for the
Got you out of your seat though.
Yeah, for the last 15 years.
You beat writer, you.
Anyway, I do think it's time that it's getting to a point where for certain kids it's unfair, and sometimes life's unfair, and I get all that. But and the one thing I do think is helpful is because of the COVID year, you know, whoever is still in the program after this will have the opportunity to come back, I believe. And so that is at least one thing that in normal times this might really be the end of somebody's career that it necessarily wouldn't be, or it might truly take a year of eligibility. You have that option to sort of get it back, but it's got to happen soon. You can't have what is this? This isn't some massive.
Will the prosecutor look at the issues they had with Illinois in the tunnel?
No, but it's a different case. You're just looking at this.
I understand that, but I mean, it's happened 3 times this year. There's been an issue in the tunnel. You have to take that into account a little bit, right?
No, the Big Ten ought to weigh in and ought to say there's got to be, and you've got to logistically fix your situation in the tunnel. That ought to happen. There's zero excuse for it. There's zero excuse for it. I mean, and it's either you'd fix it logistically by making sure nobody gets by and gets in there and you have separation of time. And they did that the other day with Illinois, and it took forever, but they did it. Or you get in there in the offseason with little construction crews and you widen things and you figure it out, and you figure a way that you don't have that bottleneck once you're inside it. Lots of places have one tunnel. It's the bottleneck inside it when they're trying to get into the 2 locker rooms that's the extra problem. What is your next hot take?
Let's go to basketball, Graham. Big game against Villanova. Now, this was a gut feel when I was watching the game. It was deep in the second half, and I thought to myself, A.J. Hoggard, he's got a little Mateen in him, doesn't he? I mean, almost had a triple-double against Villanova. He seems like he's got a command of the floor. I mean, you're there. Does he seem like he looks like he's trying to take over this team and lead them to something? And that was just my gut feel. That's my hot take. A.J. Hoggard has some Mateen cleaves in him.
Well, there is a little of that. It's also because he's a thicker guy. You know, he's got a little Mateen's mannerisms, I would say, to it. That's what
I mean. The end of the game. Boy, oh boy. Can you imagine if Michigan State would have blown the game against Villanova and then
But the difference is
the football game?
Jesus. The difference is this. Indiana sucks.
Yes.
Villanova is got 4 dudes on there who have been in a Final Four, and those are proven proud guys who are not going to quit on you, who are difficult to stop in the post. And the Dixon kid who hit all those he's a terrific player.
Well, you can't shoot 25% from 3-point line and beat Michigan State, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. So Michigan State should not have let that game get that close. There was the Hall foul trouble. I think the Aikens just doesn't have the depth of Aikens changes who they are athletically. You remember there was that year where Aaron Henry I think it was Aaron Henry's freshman year, and what Aaron Henry did for that team with Cassius Winston and those guys, he just changed who they were athletically, and that was a big deal when he was on the floor. And Aikens may become more than that as he gets back into the groove, but already he does that, and I think that makes a big difference on both ends of the floor. Yeah, no, it was what was amazing is Izzo was not upset. If they had lost that game, he would have been sick, but he wasn't upset because I think he knows how just gritty that team is and how well his team played for a long time to even get that lead. And it was a night that Breslin was kind of rocking again, and those are
how many minutes is Cooper going to get, though? I mean, it's kind of sad to watch. I understand that he needs to get some reps in game, but man.
Can I give you a number that'll surprise you? His plus-minus in that game, +6. Michigan State was 6 points better than Villanova when Carson Cooper was in the game. That does not mean he played well. That's why that stat over in a one-game scenario can lie to you like nothing else because it's who you're on the floor with a lot. So you need a broader sample size. Yeah, no, he's going to have to figure it out over time. And it'll be interesting watching them play against Alabama. This is bringing me my third hot take. I think this is going to be a tough weekend for Michigan State. I don't think they're going to run off the floor. They got the reason people are going to love this Michigan State team is because they're not going to lose a lot of stupid games, sort of like they didn't to Villanova. What I mean is they're not going to lose games to teams they shouldn't lose to, and they're going to win more road games against average and below average teams than most of the Big Ten. They'll lose on the road to Illinois or Indiana. They're even up teams all the time. Everybody does that, right? That's fine. But the seasoning and the way those guards are and the way they play defense and sort of, to this point, honor the scouting report, that stuff travels. I think this team will travel pretty well. And the reason I think they'll be in the top 3 in the Big Ten is because they're going to lose fewer dumb games or fewer games to lesser opponents on the road than some other teams will that may be just as good as them. But I do think this weekend, without Aiken, I think Alabama has a chance to be the best team they've faced yet. And Alabama, I know, is ranked a little lower. They haven't played anybody. They haven't really been tested. I like the team. I love the freshmen they have on the wing. I like their backcourt, especially their point guard seems to be getting healthier. Their athletic. They're bouncy. They shoot a lot of threes. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it goes with Alabama and then the rest of the tournament. But if they're without Akins, 3 games in 4 days, it's a big week for Pierre Brooks, a big opportunity. But I just think what Akins gives you is a problem. If he plays and he's able to play close to 100% some of those games, changes the dynamic. But I thought
Akins was 100% fine. Like the results from the X-rays came back 100%.
He doesn't have a break or anything, but it's definitely been tweaked. Like it's all about, there's some pain there still. So the question is, he didn't practice, wasn't supposed to practice today, didn't practice Sunday. And so the question is, by the time they get to Thursday, the one good thing about it is, in this stretch, this gauntlet of games they've had, it's the one 5-day window they've actually had, where you went from a Friday night game till not playing till next Thursday, and that gives a little bit of healing time. And the other thing is, if you give him an extra day and he plays Friday, Sunday, you lose a game, so be it. These are early season games, all against good teams. You lose to Alabama, that doesn't hurt you one bit on a seed line later on in the NCAA tournament. Alabama's going to be a top 3 seed, I think, in the tournament. They're that good. But no, this will be an interesting week, and if they don't have Jaden Akins, I think they're in trouble. Your final hot take.
The Detroit Lions are back. At least I'm back. My fandom is back. How about that game, Graham?
It's incredible.
They play Buffalo this Thursday. They've won 3 in a row. Buffalo looks beatable, I think. And with their schedule coming up, I'm not going to go hot take and say the Lions are going to make the playoffs or anything. I mean, Jags, Vikings, Jets, Panthers, Bears, and finish off with Green Bay. I mean, is it far-fetched to think playoffs? No. Do I think it'll happen? No.
If they win this week, I think
then we're back in.
Everything goes bananas.
I think Josh Allen carves up that secondary for the Lions. But, I mean, still, building on this, I mean, in a crazy season, I understand people aren't sold on Dan Campbell, and I get it because I'm not really sold on Dan Campbell yet either. But you have to love the way that this franchise is going at the moment. I mean, Brad Holmes getting that Rams pick, it takes away a little of the sting of winning these games. And as they're winning these games, you don't want to tank anymore. And then knowing you have the Rams number 1 pick and Stafford's going to be out for a while, who knows what's up with him? The Rams are complete ass. So that's going to be a top 5 pick. So you're excited about that. It's amazing how things can change in a month for the fan base. And I understand. Yeah, guess what? I'm vetted. I'm grandfathered into this shit. I can leave. I can come back tomorrow. I can do whatever I want. So I'm a fair weather fan if you want to call me that, but I don't give a shit because the Lions have done some terrible shit to me. I've seen a lot. But I'm on the bandwagon again. I'm back.
Yeah, look, I am I'm having fun watching.
You know what else I hate about it, though? The Jared Goff thing. And I know people, he puts up these stats, but you can't tell me.
He's not the dude.
You can't tell me if you put anyone in that it's a running quarterback. Jacoby Brissett, you could start him and win more games.
And here's the beauty of it, is ultimately because of where the Rams pick is going to be, and even if the Lions win a few more games and push the edge of the playoffs, it's going to be a middle of the first round pick. Worst case scenario, if you're the Lions, you're going to have the 8th and 14th picks. Worst case scenario. And if you do, that's still a hell of a package to help go up and get your guy. This is the year you go do it if you got one of your guys up there. You got those 2 picks. This is what it's for. Ultimately, that was why you get the extra pick, is to do what you need to do when you need to do it. And they've got some others. Do it. You go get your guy. But I'm with you that having them play meaningful, fun football on Thanksgiving,
it's fun.
It's sort of like when we say with the Tigers, hey, just get us to football season. Be relevant till football season. With the Lions, it's always, hey, at least get through November. Because then you know what happens in December? First of all, it's basketball partly, but also the rest of the NFL is so interesting late in the playoffs. I can deal with the Lions being out of it. But you
want to see progress. And that's what they're showing. They're showing that, Dan Campbell has his team believing in a lot. I mean, the offensive line has played out of their mind, and it just goes to show you if you build from both sides out, you can have a Jared Goff and win some games, which the previous general manager regimes have never figured out. But
this is why Michigan State has trouble. Is you go back to even the leaner D'Antonio years toward the end, 2018, still great against the run. That was an identity for that team. Pretty good against the run in 2019. They're giving up 214 yards a game, dead last against the run this year in Big Ten play. That identity's gone. And then on the other side, the Lions, sort of the core of any football team in the trenches for Michigan State, it's just not good enough. And that's why I think next year is going to be, unless, some of these guys really develop or you hit the right deal with a couple transfers and you stay healthy, I think next year is going to be a chore because, unlike the Lions, who I think really have something on the offensive line. They do. It's not fun on draft day when they draft those guys, but holy shit, like Penei Sewell is, that's a great draft pick.
Yeah, it's not fun, but it's necessary taking a guy like that. You take a guy top 10 like Sewell, he's going to be around for a decade.
Yeah,
I have no problem with it.
I have zero problem with taking Penei Sewell either. Before we dig into your hot takes, a reminder: if you want a Muskox flannel, and I'm telling you, I love this thing. Wear it around all the time, probably too much, but it holds up nicely. It's comfortable as hell. Keeps me warm. Looks good. Can wear it in public. Can wear it in like professional settings. My wife likes how it looks on me. She wants to wear it. She wants one. You can go to gomuskox.com and use the promo code CAWCAW15 for $15 off for Couch and the Rube listeners on a Muskox high-quality flannel. And just so you know, they care deeply about the planet, which is why $10 of every flannel sold goes to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. It is look, these are durable. They say rugged luxury, and I like to think that's what that goes along with my brand, rugged luxury. What do you say, Jason?
Do you think that they're picking up your Taco Bell wrappers to save the earth? Did you tell them that story?
I don't want to tell them that story because they're going to drop their sponsorship if they heard about my being upset with the weather.
Jason, tell another prison story. That was my favorite part of the whole weekend. Is that I tweeted?
It's Skymint, you mean?
I tweeted
or this weekend.
This past weekend.
Okay.
Is that I tweeted out? I even tagged my own show that I'm on, and I can't even get retweeted.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
No, you liked it
from
the Couch of the Rube account. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. No,
yeah.
I got a like, but heaven forbid if I get a retweet from the show that I'm on. If you have a soccer parlay that's ass, Graham will retweet that.
That's true. We'll get into those.
I'm glad you have fun with that account. It's great.
Yeah. You can go to gomuskox.com, GOMUSKOX.com, to learn more about Muskox and use the promo code CAWCAW15 for $15 off. Let us dig into your hot takes.
You know who's first, and it's Eric Schultz. Number one, they've continually bungled end-of-game and short yardage situations. Good coaches adjust. This dude has no clue. Two, that's 3 times now where MSU has been completely outclassed in the second half in a game they're in at halftime. Other teams make adjustments. This dude has no clue. And 3, this is not a situation where a great coach just needs more talent. MSU has light years ahead of Indiana. We want to eventually compete with the big boys when we can't stop a horrible IU team that refuses to pass the ball. Dude has no clue.
Yeah, I mean, the second half stuff is concerning, right? Because great coaches make those adjustments. Great coaches' teams are better in the second half. And we've seen teams sometimes, you see this with offensive coordinators where they're really good when it's scripted, those first, 15 plays, 10 plays, 7 plays, however you do it. And then things sort of fall apart. Well, if you look at the Michigan game, you look at this week, you look at the Rutgers, there have been a number of games where they have not been the better team in the second half at all times. And I think that is something that's concerning. And again, if you're Mel Tucker, one thing you have to do is you have to have an honest conversation with yourself. I talk to myself all the time, so it's easy to do. Mm-hmm. And you got to figure out, where are my weaknesses? And do I have a staff? Because we all have them. I mean, you have weaknesses, Jason. You might not know them.
Few.
Yeah. But you have to know what you're not great at, and make sure your staff complements you. Mel Tucker talks about complementary football all the time. You can if you're a great recruiter and you're a great motivator and you do certain things in terms of defensive scheme, whatever, you may have other strengths within football, but there are certain things you don't do well. Make sure you have some people on your staff who do those things well. And I think that's just something that he's got to evaluate.
Dominic next. Number one, I don't think this staff knows shit about fuck. I don't think they accept reality regarding their personnel. These aren't isolated events. Poor clock management, slow developing short yardage play calls, delay of game after a kickoff, not centering the ball for my left foot. You cannot lose games like that in the midst of a rebuild. Not like that. And don't lie to me and say you were trying to score a touchdown at the end of regulation. It's fine to lay up for the field goal, but just say you were.
Yeah, and I understand that that Elijah Collins did do what he wasn't supposed to. The play was meant to go in the middle there, and he cut it back trying to make a play. And you can understand a guy, your instinct in the moment is, hey, there might be an opening there. I'm trying to make a play. So you got to drill that in his head, and he shouldn't have made that mistake. But ultimately, you can take a knee there. And that was a mistake by Elijah Collins. Like, if you look where that play was designed to go, it was for the dead center. But if you're just going to run into the teeth of the line, maybe you do just take a knee and get yourself centered for 22 yards out, because that was a straight kick. The problem was it was a tough angle. And I'm not saying he shouldn't be able to make that kick. He should. You're Division I kicker who's been at multiple Division I universities, who made big kicks before. He made a 48-yarder last week. You ought to be able to make that kick. But it also is a pressure kick in weather where it's not fun to kick a ball. And all you're looking to do is win a game. Make that as easy as you possibly can for your kicker. And they didn't do that there.
CC next, with just one here. Okay. Will Mel Tucker ever take personal accountability for the play calling? Why is it always lack of execution or players not doing the right thing? And from Matt C., one take. Mel Tucker is the worst game day football coach in MSU history.
I don't know how old Matt C. is, but there are probably some guys out there of
19.
Yeah. But in terms of the accountability, I do think one of the things Mel Tucker doesn't do really well as a head coach yet, maybe he'll get better at this, is sort of that self-deprecation, fall on the sword a little bit, like that. It goes a long way with people. Nobody expects perfection. But
you have to talk to the fans, though. I don't think you can be so closed off.
Right, but you can do that through a press conference. If you say the right, people are paying attention. Yeah. That is just not his strength right now. And it wasn't like today, entirely personable. Good conversation with him. He answered every question. He gave some enlightening stuff. He was good, but it doesn't, and I think, and he's trying to be as real as he can with certain things without throwing guys under the bus, or and I respect the fact that he is not going to come out and say Jay Johnson is not the answer here. You don't do that with a week left in the season. You know what I mean? Like that's for people like me or our listeners or you to say. That is not good leadership. Is not doing that right now.
You do it on Thanksgiving. Fire their ass. Here's a turkey. Get the fuck out.
Maybe since the game's 2 days after Thanksgiving, maybe you wait a little after Thanksgiving. But
yeah.
But again, those decisions, and again, we don't have a sense of all the inner workings. What's working, what's not, why isn't. Is there some sort of personnel thing that's truly limiting them some way that they've got to deal with and overcome, but that's creating some issues? Those are things we don't have. What we do know is they don't have the dudes, and with the guys they have not maximized them this season, and they have not been great in game management and play calling on key downs and things like that. And the play that it was, I guess it was 4th and 2. I thought it was 4th and 1 at the time, but it was the pass into the end zone where they had two guys in the same area and 4 defensive backs. And like I don't hate if you really have a receiver, like if Keon Coleman becomes a guy that you think can get great separation and be a problem there, and you have a play design that gets him open, I don't hate a 4th and 2 throw to that guy. But just the way things go for them, that play was just not going to work. You could just see it wasn't going to work. And those are things they've got to figure out. And why are they going to those plays? Because you can say it's execution, but if you're not executing repeatedly, you got to do things you got a chance to execute.
Steve, next. Number 1, Iowa wins the West Division and ends up keeping the Big Ten out of the college football playoff. 2, although Elon is making a mess on this app right now, its end result will be the return of local journalism. Oh, good. 3, not a hot take, but Sunday mornings with Couch in the Rube and Groovy Donuts coffee mug with breakfast is unmatched.
This, of course, is the Hopcat hot take of the day. Thank you, Steve. The best damn beer bar, world-famous Cosmic Fries, mouth-watering, award-winning burgers, and Michigan's finest selection of local craft beer. One thing they do very well, of course, is each location has carefully curated craft beer lists with local partners. I was just there with Joe Rexroad late Saturday night, watched the end of Tennessee versus South Carolina, and Joe was pretty hammered, by the way. But he handles being hammered well.
Why are you telling that?
I probably shouldn't. We'll fix that in post. Take that
Joe
off.
just wanted to get hammered with no one knowing.
No. But what I mean is, I was impressed. Like I didn't know he was that drunk till later. He told me he was He'd been drinking. They started tailgating, but he was in town. His kid goes to MSU. They were in town. They tailgated before he was out all day. So,
Shit, Rexrode's got a kid that goes to MSU?
He's old, man.
Holy hell.
Yeah, he's real old. So anyway, a fantastic time at Hopcat. Great vibe, great beer. Peyton Thornburger, of course, 2 smash patties with American cheese, bacon, and a sunny side-up egg served on a pretzel bun with cosmic fries, formerly known as crack fries. Entirely worth it. And
crack fries.
And Steve will get our $20 Hopcat gift card. We will get sent his way for and I know he's doesn't live in state, but he's somebody who comes back regularly and will be able to use it. So to these hot takes from Steve, the West Division is awful as it's been, and I know Illinois just played Michigan really tough. And Michigan's a little beat up at running back. Ohio State's beat up at running back. I don't think either one of those teams is full strength right now. Iowa, I've been saying this. I've been winning money on them the last few weeks because they have the one elite unit of the West Division, and that's their defense. And their offense has gotten slightly better. And I don't think Ohio State, I think, will truck Iowa again. But Michigan, if their running backs aren't completely healthy, they're not putting up a ton of points. Iowa's defense is better than Illinois', and I understand it'll be in an indoor environment, which helps Michigan in that sense. But that isn't a gimme. The West Division could, if Michigan beats Ohio State, I believe Iowa could be in that game this year. So I don't think that's
now that's a hot take.
I think that's interesting, and I do hope that somehow everything with Twitter helps the return of local journalism. That would be
Michigan, Iowa, Big Ten championship game, and it's 6-3.
Yeah, I think
Just
Iowa's
blows
offense
the Red Box Bowl out of the water.
Yeah, I think it'll be more like 17-10. But I think Iowa's in the game, maybe. I mean,
because of their D. I don't know.
That's
how
the
did they
thing.
score 10?
Well, that's a good point. Their offense has been better of late. It's better than it was earlier. They're a little bit better. I'm not saying they'll win the game. I'm just saying that is not the blowout. It's worth sprinkling, and whatever the line is, it might be worth putting some money on the line.
Pat Caverly next. I was disappointed when Max Christie left. Now I think we're better off. Everybody has their role and feels valued. Nobody relying on a star player to get theirs. This team has grit. I like rooting for McQuaid and Goins-type players and teams they played on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're better off without Max Christie in certain ways. Like Christie would, I think last year's team, in some ways, Christie was asked to do more than he was ready to do, and he had to do it based on whose last year's team was. So I don't think it's fair to Christie to say that, because he was a guy who behaved like a pro. He worked his ass off. He came in early. He took care of himself. And I think if he was on this team, it would only help. I think you're right in the sense that this team has enough without him. And it certainly, but like this week, without Jaden Akins, they could certainly use Max Christie. That would probably be the difference between winning and losing. But if they're 100% healthy, they certainly have enough because you can only play 5 guys at once. And I love the construction of their what they have in the backcourt with Akins and Tyson Walker and AJ Hoggard. To me is just that's what you want in college basketball. I mean, what you really want is Cassius Winston. But short of that, you get a guy like Hoggard who thinks he's God's gift to being point guard, which is a good level of arrogance to have. And he's a guy who can be a force downhill. You get Walker, who is confident as hell right now, and certainly is a guy who can create his own shot. And then you get Akins, who is a two-way guy and an above-the-rim guy. I think defensively, all 3 of them are really good. Like, I don't know. To me, that is an ideal front court in the college game, and I think we're going to see that play out throughout this season.
Patrick Russell next. For the young fans out there, that MSU loss was pure John L. Smith. Been a long time since I felt a loss where you let the few remaining goals of the season slip through your fingers. Got to beat Penn State.
Yeah, John L. Whatever. It's just a bad. It's a it's an end of the D'Antonio era. It's a lot of things, and you can't have too many of those games because people lose faith. Now, here's my question for you, Jason. He signs 14 4-star kids. December 22nd. What is the narrative about Mel Tucker?
The narrative is who's he going to fire?
Well, by then they would have made those choices probably.
Oh, you think so?
Maybe not. Actually, maybe wait till after signing day. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but Mel Tucker has always been this hype machine when coming in with his social media. Is that really a big deal?
He's got
recruits. I mean, it's good. It's a good start. But should Michigan State fans just rest easy? Like, well, you know what? Mel's getting it done. I don't think so.
No, I think there are things that they're going to leave this year concerned about. And ultimately, the only thing he can do to really answer them is to keep recruiting well, and then have another season that doesn't look like this. And next year, here's the thing. Next year, it can be a rough year, but it can't be. You can't lose in stupid ways. You can't lose to Indiana 24-7. You can have games where you're outmatched still, because I think they are going to be outmatched in certain games. There could be a really good team in the West next year that's just better. There could be whatever. But you can't make the mistakes that cost you games you have a chance to win, and you can't have those be coaching mistakes and execution mistakes of veteran players.
Stephen Douglas, next. There's not much difference between us and most of the teams we play. I can think of 95 million reasons why that's not an acceptable statement.
So that was the quote from "There's not that much difference between us and most of the teams we play." Was the quote from Mel Tucker.
So what's the difference then?
But the problem is, and I get that the problem is you don't just snap your fingers and recruits are there. Like you're paying for the build, you're paying for the potential, you're paying for in 2025 when they go to Ohio State or Ohio State comes to East Lansing, that game is a toe-to-toe fight. That's what you're paying $95 million for. And if you get that, it's 100% worth it. You got to give him time for that. Now, again, along the way, you don't want frustrating things, but they're not firing him before that. They're not getting rid of him. So, I mean, I think that people can be frustrated and they can doubt him, and that's all fair. But understand that you're going to have Mel Tucker, unless Mel Tucker chooses to go somewhere else, which financially seems to be crazy. You're going to have Mel Tucker, and
he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and you might as well see where this thing goes and hope he makes the right decisions with his staff to help him where he's not as strong.
Gator, next. What are the stipulations of a 5-7 team getting to a bowl game?
It's based on academic progress rate, and Michigan State is, I think, pretty well positioned there. So there is a chance that they will be in Detroit either way. I don't know whether you want that game.
No.
Because here's the thing, and I know that, if they'd won, first of all, if they beat Penn State to get to 6-6, it will have felt like they did something to go to a bowl game. That's different. If they had beaten Indiana, it would have felt like they did something. They had a really good month. They won 3 straight after that Michigan debacle. Even if they lost at Penn State, did something to get to a bowl game. If you go 5-7, losing your last 2, including that Indiana game, so you get walloped to Penn State, nobody wants the extra game. They need that to recruit. And I'm not sure that there's enough. What are you selling to recruits? Hey, we didn't earn the bowl game, but they put us in one. And then does it take away from your recruiting in December? You don't do it if you got to work with your offensive line in December. You want those practices. You can have your 15th analyst working with your offensive line, but your offensive line coach needs to be on the road recruiting.
You don't want to go to a bowl game 5-7.
I don't think you do.
Decline it.
I think you do.
Yeah. No. Why?
I mean, people want the practices, and I get that. But if you really think they're that important,
Comparoni?
No.
Other than Comp, who wants the practice? Who gives a shit?
Well, the
players,
the coaches, I'm saying, want the practices sometimes.
Yeah. Call me Al. Next, number 1, the loss stings a lot less when you're in Mexico and didn't see a moment of it. 2, submitting hot takes on vacation isn't a great use of time.
Appreciate you. Call me Al.
Well, what else are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, if you're by the pool, you got.
I was in Mexico. I get bored sometimes.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, plus you didn't see it's great that you didn't see a moment of it. Hanging out in Mexico, it's warm as hell.
See a moment of what?
The game, he says.
Oh, the Michigan State game.
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like I went to San Diego a week too early. Like it was 73 here when I went to San Diego. I came back and now it's like
it's karma
4
for your smarmy ass tweets and stuff.
That's fair.
Yeah. Plus size softball dad with 3. Number 1, caw. 2, caw. And 3, caw. Caw. Instead of
Peacock.
G.E. Miller next. Number 1, no team deserved to win a game less than Indiana on Saturday. MSU's 7 catastrophically blown plays were an all-time gift of epic proportions. 2, so far, Tucker is an A-level motivator and a C recruiter and an F in-game manager. 3, current assistant hot seat leaderboard, L's, Jordan, Hazelton.
Wow, Jordan. I don't think Brandon Jordan's going anywhere.
Why would you want him to go anywhere?
No, you want him to recruit for you. That's that deal. You don't. You don't want that. C recruiter, I don't think is fair, because then what was D'Antonio? A D? Like
F plus.
Yeah. I mean, so far I don't think the recruiting thing is fair. The game management situation this year has not been great. And what's so interesting is that last year, and again, they had Kenneth Walker and all that stuff, but there were some games that they just finished really, really well. But they finished often well because they had Kenneth Walker. And so that's different. They had a better offensive line. And we're seeing it right now with the Detroit Lions. Like, I have more faith that the Detroit Lions won't blow a 24-7 lead, despite their defense being horrible, than I do Michigan State, because I think they're a little bit better somewhere in the trenches. You know what I mean? Like, that gives you a hope to keep running the ball. Like, their running game last week was the best I've seen in a long, long time. And so, like, when you can do that, you can prevent your defense from blowing a 24-7 lead.
Jeffrey Daly next. MSU beats Penn State. Totally kidding. Hot take, you say? They lose by more than 35.
Well, that'll be a bad feeling if they get totally walled.
Well, let me ask you, Graham. Does this team, do you think they have fight left in them? Because I know that I saw that your quotes from Peyton Thorne in the locker room after the Indiana game, and he was down low, which is understandable. But does that mean you can get up for a game after Thanksgiving?
I think they get up.
Okay.
The Thanksgiving for them isn't like back home or getting fat. It's like at the coaches' houses and things like that. But
yeah, I don't know why I mentioned that.
Yeah, but no, and I think it was what I liked about what Thorne and Henderson said after the game was totally, it was just honest. It was raw. It was how you should feel. It wasn't you just move on. Like, you don't move on from that. That sucked. And you'd had, and these guys. I mean, if you're Xavier Henderson, could be the end of your football career. Period. If you're Peyton Thorne, I don't know what he'll decide after this year. It was an interesting comment he had last week where he was asked about what he'll do in his future, and he just said, we'll look at things after the season. That was fascinating. Like, he could have said, well, I'm a junior. I'll be back next year. You know what I mean? He didn't say that. So that was an interesting comment as well.
Chris King next. This will be one of the biggest off seasons I can remember for MSU football. Critical that State holds on to its guys who are young and have shown upside. Also have to finish strong on the recruiting trail. This, I believe, will tell us a lot about the program and Coach Tucker.
Recruiting trail is everything. I mean, it's if you have a class that inspires people and gives hope back, you'll be fine. Like, people will be excited about that. And I think the other reason this class is so important is if next year is a little bit of a struggle again, but people have just seen you sign a really good recruiting class that are true freshmen, people are going to be like, okay, you know what, though? This guy's recruiting. It's going to take a minute. If the class is less inspiring and there isn't hope for you know what I mean? Like, that recruiting class will buy you time.
Not if you keep playing like they did last weekend.
Well, that's true.
Matt Venny next. Number 1, a game like that doesn't happen without some coaches losing their jobs at the end of the year. 2, after that 4th down play call at midfield, if Jay Johnson is back next year, my season tickets will be entering the transfer portal.
That'll be interesting to see. I mean, that is truly the way you can speak, though. If you're unhappy with things, you don't go to games, you don't support, and that's a fair. Everybody has that right to do. So
look at Texas A&M.
What's going on?
No one shows up.
Oh yeah,
for Jimbo.
Yeah, well, that's
Jesus.
You don't want that.
What a shit show that is.
That's not great. So yeah, I mean, that is your ability to speak, and that's often how you're heard if you're really unhappy. I don't think people want to be unhappy yet, though. Like, there's a point where you're like, there could be a point of no return. I don't think anybody's there yet. They're just frustrated because everything's relative to how you felt a year ago at this time. And people really thought they'd struck gold. They had lightning. It was like, this guy is
Kenneth Walker.
Right. They did have Kenneth Walker, and they had a better offensive line. But it was like, this guy's got something. And the summer was all this hype and fun, and then the year has been kind of hellish. And there are a lot of reasons for it that were difficult circumstances in terms of when the schedule hit and some of the injuries that hit, and there's no question about that. And I think the hardest thing is if they had just beaten Indiana, All they had to do was hold on to a 24-7 lead. And our conversation's totally different. They've won 3 straight. They're going to a bowl game.
And you play competent football against Penn State.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, okay,
whatever.
next year.
And you just can't have those games. And that's but when you do, you go to Skyman. Like players, coaches, everybody right now, you go to Skyman. Go to skymint.com for location information. There are 3 in the greater Lansing area. They're all over the state. Brand new one in Grand Rapids. They've got all sorts of cool Christmas and holiday things going on, including the holiday edible collection. Pot cocoa and pomegranate orange gummies made with delicious cannabis cheer. All sorts of cool stuff. Holiday gummies. Lots of featured deals going on as well. You can see all of them if you go to skymint.com. They'll also deliver your cannabis to you. So if you want your weed right at your house, most places in this state at this point, you're in a community where Skymint delivers. Go to skymint.com to find out if you are. And if you are a first-time customer, the Couch and the Rube promo code is Couch and Rube 20 for 20% off.
Nestle's Quick Hotel next. Mel Tucker will not be MSU's head coach on January 1st, 2024, unless, with the assistance of new assistants, he can consistently win in any instance he has seemingly insurmountable lead. I must insist you read this as written.
It was as you requested. So that means, in other words, after next season, he's not the head coach. Again, I'm telling you,
you'd have to take another job.
Next year is not going to go great. So again, there is that not losing this sort of game deal. The games you should never have. Like when I look back at this season, what happened against Minnesota, inexcusable. Not that you had to win that game, being they were shorthanded and all that stuff, Minnesota playing well at the time. You could lose to Minnesota. Minnesota's a competent team. But you can't lose like they did to Minnesota. That was the first low point of the season. And then you can't blow the 24-7 lead to Indiana. And then you should be a little bit better in the second half against Michigan. And there are areas where you should be a little bit better out of the gate, although the Washington scenario I'm going to give them a pass on. But the really bad ones are Minnesota and Indiana. But those are really bad things. And that should not happen in any season.
Derek Spartan next. We would have been better off hiring Narduzzi. There you go. One hot take.
What's your thought on that?
Appreciate you. I don't believe in that. I'm not a big Narduzzi guy like you are, other people are. I got to say, I'd rather ride with Tucker.
I think Tucker's ceiling is higher in terms of who he can bring in. And Narduzzi's been a solid, good coach at Pitt, and maybe you have more resources at Michigan State to do a little more. You certainly have your own stadium, their bigger fan base. It's easier to win at Michigan State than it is Pitt. And he's done some good things at Pitt. So I'm not saying you want to win at MSU. And he might have, but I'm not convinced of that either.
Jeff Peterson with just one here. Michigan and Ohio State deserve to fall in the college football playoff rankings for a weak showing against weaker opponents.
The thing is, it really doesn't matter because they're going to play each other, and the winner is in unless they lose to Iowa, which then it gets really interesting.
And then Iowa's in.
That would be tremendous.
Buckle up for the Ferentz family.
And Iowa wins the national title. And then
9-3.
And then Fran comes out and storms through the NCAA tournament. It's an all-Iowa year.
Thank you, Skymint.
Oh, man. Skymint will be all over the place. Yeah. So, to this point, though, the question becomes, does the loser get in? And I think it's more and more clear-cut now that Tennessee is out of the picture. Because if USC wins out, USC would get in. If TCU gets out, they'd get in. And then you'd have the SEC champion and the Big Ten champion as long as it's Michigan or Ohio State. The question becomes if when USC loses, because they still got Notre Dame in a conference championship game, or TCU, then what happens? And I think Ohio State's in a better spot, certainly, than Michigan would be. Michigan might get punished for that schedule. And here's one thing I want to say about the Michigan schedule. People get really defensive, and I understand Michigan fans do on Twitter when people point that out. But two things can be true. You can still deserve a playoff bid, and that can be an inexcusably embarrassing schedule that should never happen, that almost or could have cost you a playoff bid in certain circumstances. There is zero excuse for that schedule. Should not have happened. And if you're a Michigan fan, you should be upset that your administration put you in that spot. But that secondly, that's a whole different argument for whether you're in the playoff, and that may come into play a little bit, but ultimately you beat Ohio State, you're in. It does make a big difference.
Lucas next. Number 1, Jay, Els, and Thorne can leave. Thorne is a future Bronco. 2, if Mel retains most of the staff heading into 2023, we need to have the talk. And 3, I really need a self-propelled snow thrower.
That sounds kind of fun. A snow thrower? Like, what do you self-propelled though?
One of those those old pitching machines that they used to have at Fun Time.
Yeah,
that used to be scared of. That used to aim for your head.
Yeah. Those things got
firing those bad boys.
I've seen kids get hit with those.
Dude,
things.
I got hit by those. I was so nervous because I only have one good eye, so I can't see a goddamn baseball coming at me. You know what I mean? And just firing. I'm 12 years old.
Where did it hit you?
Right in the helmet.
What?
Yeah.
That's no good.
I don't know.
Was your head in the strike zone?
No. You've been out there.
Yeah.
Out in Grand Ledge, the Fun Time.
Yeah, I've been there.
I think they're still out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
They always had
the
fast pitch one was always, or it was like the Little League fast pitch one.
Yeah.
That we'd get into. And I was like, you would see, like, my friend Mark Middleton would go in there, and he's ducking and shit, but you can't back out because all your friends are there. They're going to call you a wuss bag or something even nastier. So you had to get in there and take one for the team.
Oh, the worst is when they dare you to get in the major league one, whatever it was. Is that what you're talking about, being in the major league? I mean, there was the one that was like the fastest pitch, or it was called minor league, whatever it was, where it was really coming. It was.
And they were like yellow baseballs that were like even harder than a baseball.
Oh, yeah. No, it was. Well, I don't know if they were. But, yeah, and these days when I go there, it's just for like slow pitch softball stuff. It's a little safer, I feel. I feel quite a bit better. By the way, if you're looking for a cool stocking stuffer, that is a story worth telling, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company, 402 South Washington Avenue in downtown Lansing. In case you haven't written down the address yet, great place. On cozy nights like Midtown, I live in Midtown year-round, but Midtown in the winter, window gets a little frosty. It's cozy. It's just a great bar after work on a weekend, great date night, unbelievable menu, and also a great place with stocking stuffers. They have come by, get a Midtown gift certificate, and you can support a great local restaurant right here in downtown Lansing. Again, that's 402 South Washington Avenue in downtown Lansing, in case you don't have Google.
From the Woodshed next. Number 1, I can't recall a loss that felt more like a kick in the balls while shattering all expectations of MSU fans than this one. Absolutely embarrassing. Both coordinators need to be held accountable. And 2, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Appreciate you guys and the listeners.
Appreciate you from the Woodshed. I mean,
a listener shouting out the other listeners.
Yeah. And look, you should say how you feel. That's what the show is for. And when it feels like that, the coaching staff should know it feels like that for their fans. And especially those who are out there. If you stayed for that whole game, and I know it gave fans a little bit of grief who left. And I didn't mean it. I would not have been out there. But ultimately, like, if you're demanding,
this guy's up in a press box eating a fucking donut. I'm telling people to stay after.
I'm just gonna shut the hell up.
I mean, this is what makes you great, though, and you just have no idea. Like,
lack of self-awareness. Is that what makes me great?
Yeah, it does, man. It's funny. Ryan Allen next. One of the main reasons why coaches make so many late game errors, in my opinion, is because they don't watch football games like fans do. Fans watch 10 to 20 games a week, and we see all the late game scenarios, so we know how to handle them every week. Coaches coach 1 game a week. 2, basketball season is officially back. The good thing about football season being over is we get Malik Carr and Keon Coleman back early, and as a fan, that's awesome.
Both of these are interesting. These are good from Ryan. Thought about these for the hot take of the week.
But the coaches coach thousands of football games. They're in the mix in a football game.
They do, but it's true that without the pressure, fans get to see it. That's a little different. Like, you're watching late game scenarios. You're not thinking about anything. You're like, I've got my beer, I've got whatever this is, I've got my hand here stuck in a bowl of popcorn, and all of a sudden you see a scenario, and all you've had to think about is, wait, no, I would do this differently. I mean, I do understand it from that perspective. I want to get into the Keon Coleman, Malik Carr thing, because I do think this is a benefit for Michigan State in basketball. And if you've given up on the football season, then them not going to a bowl game, you could argue, is beneficial for the greater good of your Michigan State basketball, football fandom happiness. And frankly, the hockey team right now is playing unbelievably. So, by the way, the hockey team has scored I'll get into that. There's a hot take later. We'll get into that. The
tease.
Yeah. The MSU hockey fans, hang on tight. So, but both of these guys, instead of coming back at the end of December, beginning of January, when you're getting into the teeth of Big Ten play, they come back. I guess they'll probably join the team right after that December 7th game at Penn State, because you're not going to do it before then. You've got the game at Notre Dame, then you got a home game against Northwestern right away in succession. Then you got another Big Ten game at Penn State is pretty good. But then you've got, over the course of like 3 weeks, you play 3 games. And it's Brown, Oakland, and Buffalo. And so and they're all at home, and it's a great time to sort of bring in new guys, make sure people are healthy, get practices in. And both these guys were part of it last year. I doubt Malik Carr, I know he was a Division I recruit, but I doubt he finds real playing time. But it'll help depth of practice. Keon Coleman, I'm curious about, because obviously, does he provide certain things athletically, defensively, or, even if he's a part-time player that they can use? I'm not sure he couldn't. I'm not sure in a week like this, say Jaden Akins was out for a game, I'm not sure Keon Coleman doesn't really help you after he's been part of the program for a month. And he knows what he's getting into, and they know what they're getting with these two guys. It's a little different scenario. I'm not sure that Coleman doesn't find a spot role on this team at some point that is advantageous for Michigan State basketball.
Tucker Tarleson next. Graham, you say FU money is supposedly $2 million. Are you saying $2 million a year for your life, or just $2 million cash? Because in my mind, a one-time payment of fuck you money would have to be more than $20 million, bare minimum.
Well, there's those are two different things, right? There's fuck you money, and then there are
fuck yeah money,
and then there's just I'm done.
Hell
money.
Yeah, $2 million.
Then I'm done money. Yeah, $2 million is enough for me to make it stretch my whole life. Like
really,
$2 million right now. I'm done. We'd still do the show, but other than that, I'm done.
So what do you do? Just break yourself off $100,000 a year or something, or?
Yeah, I mean it's
I wouldn't have the discipline to do that.
Yeah, I mean it would
to turn that $2 million into $20 million.
It would help. My wife kept working, but which I'm sure she would appreciate. I'm just gonna, yeah, no, I don't need more than you. If you gave me $2 million right now, I could make it work the rest of my life without doing anything beyond this show. I would still do this, little extra money, but not. I wouldn't need.
I don't think fuck you money's 20, but it has to get near the 10 mark. I think.
Well, yeah.
I think you could do a good deal with 10 mil.
Probably.
Sean Gardner next. If MSU ever wants to have a true home field advantage that lasts the whole season, then they must build a dome.
MSU is not going to build a dome.
No,
but I know what you mean. Like at the end, it's the problem is you're not going to. I mean, ultimately, if I do wonder if because Michigan still has a big crowd here in hunting. Hunting season's messes with Michigan State, and I don't get it. Like how does it mess with MSU football attendance?
You can blame it on that if you want.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
Now, it was cold and miserable. And here's the thing. It wasn't just that it was cold. And it was the coldest game at Michigan State, home game, I can remember in a little while. I've been to a colder road game at Northwestern in 2013 where I took my wife and was just dating her pretty early on then, and 2 of her friends, bought them tickets at Northwestern and thought it was, that those games were just like 30 and everybody's bundled up and there's hot chocolate. It's kind of fun. I thought that's what they would have. Instead,
hot damn,
it's Northwestern where there's
Fireball.
just this nasty wind coming off the lake. It's the first bitter cold day of the year. We bought her a hat off a homeless guy. I mean, the whole day
you
was.
Stole a homeless guy's hat?
No, we paid for it. He was selling them.
Oh, he was selling his hat?
No, he had like a cart of hats. I don't know where he got them, but we bought her one. And
a cart of hats? You sure that wasn't his clothes?
A whole day, I got back to the hotel that night. She was still under the cover. Like she could not get warm. She was there less than a half, and then she couldn't sleep because there was a parade going on Michigan Avenue with like Mario Lopez, shouting on a microphone. It was the whole night was a freaking disaster. It was a disaster. Another story almost worth telling, presented by Midtown Brewing Company.
Jarrett next. Number 1, if Michigan and MSU switch kickers, they would both be 8-2. 2, Mark Montgomery will allow Izzo to coach at least 5 more years. And 3, Gonzaga will not have a ranked win this year in basketball.
Will not have a ranked win this year in basketball.
So they will not beat a ranked team.
Oh, well, didn't they just beat Kentucky by 20 This must have come in before that. That's why I was a little confused for a minute. This show was originally supposed to be Sunday night, and Sunday night Kentucky lost by 20 at Gonzaga. So that's out the window. I do appreciate road teams. Like Gonzaga went down to Texas and got run, but it was on the road. They went and did that. Kentucky goes up to Gonzaga, gets run. This is why this shit matters. It's why it's so different than anywhere else. Those games don't happen that way if those teams are home. So I absolutely love that. Izzo's going to coach a while, I think. It was funny. I forget who said it, but
Cockburn.
They were talking about the idea of another aircraft carrier game in like 2031, and somebody said, I think that's safely the first time I can think Tom Izzo won't be coaching Michigan State basketball. Hell, I wouldn't be 100% sure either.
Izzo will be, what, 85?
No, in 9 years?
Yeah.
No, it'll be 76.
Eric Smith next. Number one, every time I see Jim Harbaugh on TV, I change the channel quickly so everyone around me isn't subjected to an inappropriate amount of profanity. Jesus. 2, this Hoops team is such an Izzo team. No expectations and no having to figure out a rotation like when you're usually have 11 to 13 guys needing minutes.
So I do think there is something to the rotation they're playing now, and Izzo's even said it. Now, he's had the strength of his team has occasionally been the number of guys they played, because late in the year late in games they've worn teams down. But there have often been games where I've gone, he's playing too many guys. He's playing too many guys, not enough minutes consecutively to let guys get into a flow. And I think that's not happening this year. And I do absolutely think that is helping.
Jeff Shaper next. Number one, worst loss of the Mel Tucker era. 2, soccer is watchable with money on it, but I don't know what the F I'm doing. So hit us with some World Cup soccer knowledge, Coach.
Okay, well, I tweeted something out after this because there are games I like, and I liked England, Argentina, and Spain as a 3-team parlay at like -114, just on the money line, those 3, because I do think they're much better than the teams they're playing. There are some other heavy favorites that I like a bit, and so you can get into those, but those are the ones I really like. So you still got Spain and Argentina going up, depending on Argentina, I think it's early tomorrow, though. So look for heavy favorites that make sense to parlay them together. And I really like Spain. And whatever their odds are to win the whole thing, it's like plus 800, plus something like that. I think Spain's as good as anybody in this field. I think there's value in them. I think England, their odds have probably changed now. They won the first game and looked so good, but I think there was some value there as well. So if you can pick a couple teams that you can that are good teams that you're able to watch when the U.S. is done and kind of follow throughout the tournament, that's a fun way to do it too, and those would be mine. Also, I think there's value still on Spain to get to the quarterfinals. If you go to the Firekeepers app and download that, I think a number of books will have it as well. Just the Spain to get to the quarterfinals at -150, I think, is a really, really good value bet.
Joshua next. Number one, Mel Tucker is either going to be one of the best MSU coaches of all time or the worst. I have a hard time seeing it being in between. 2, with the talent on the offensive side of the ball, Jay Johnson is arguably worse than Dave Warner. Dave was atrocious, but he had a fraction of talent. Jay has to work with. His entire offense relies on playing 500 or run up the middle, not scheming guys open whatsoever. And 2, with the talent on the offensive side of the ball, Jay Johnson. Oh, did I read that?
Yeah.
Oh, he only has 2. Okay.
Yeah. The idea that there's nothing in between for Mel Tucker. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll see. I understand why you're saying that, though, because you've had sort of years that feel like they're all or nothing sort of deals, and then you've got this high-end recruiting that's. I mean, I understand why that feeling is there. The Dave Warner thing, Dave Warner, though, had more talent a lot of years than Jay Johnson has right now. I mean, he had good offensive lines for some of those years. He had Connor Cook at quarterback for some of those years. He had some really good receivers. You look at that 2014 group and Jeremy Langford and all those. He had some really good players to play with at times. It's when he lost his offensive line that he started looking like chicken shit, and that's ultimately what's happened to Jay Johnson here, too. There's a theme there that when you don't have a decent offensive line, being an offensive coordinator is really, really hard. Let's take a really quick break. We come back, we'll dig into more of your hot takes. Couch in the Rube, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis and Muskox high-quality flannels.
Hopcat exists at the intersection of great beer and delicious food, complemented by music, art, community, and comfort. Home to a best-in-class beer experience served by craft beer experts. Guests can expect a casual, inviting local gathering place with some of the best damn burgers and fries you'll find in Michigan. Hopcat is proud to be an official sponsor of Peyton Thorne. Show your Spartan pride by ordering the iconic Peyton Thorne burger, created by the man himself. There is no better place to watch any Michigan State game other than the 50-yard line at Spartan Stadium. Stop by any of our locations: East Lansing, Detroit, Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, Kalamazoo, and Holland. To plan your next trip to Hopcat, visit hopcat.com. Ever wondered just how comfortable you can be? Find out with Muskox high-quality flannels. Muskox is a Detroit-based company that creates durable comfort that'll last a lifetime. Muskox flannels are thoughtfully designed with 100% cotton that is ethically sourced and double brushed for softness. This will be the softest flannel you'll ever buy, guaranteed. For every $100 purchase, Muskox will donate $10 to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. Get comfortable this fall and winter with Muskox flannels. Learn more or order yours today at gomuskox.com. Firekeepers Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play. Get your Vegas on right now from your phone, tablet, or laptop. All the hottest slots and tables, plus sports betting featuring in-game wagering. Download the app at firekeeperscasino.com. Go with the name you know. Firekeepers. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117.
Find Couch in the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Couch in the Rube, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis, and our Monday night show brought to you by our friends at Muskox high-quality flannels. Don't just take it from me and Jason, but many others who have enjoyed Muskox. One reviewer here, Brent, says, this is an amazing product. Highly recommend. Great quality. Should last for years. Not your typical run-of-the-mill flannel. Top-notch. Also, Tyler, I love these flannels. They've completely changed the game. Compliments from everyone. Perfect fit and warmth. Go to gomuskox.com, GOMUSKOX.com, and use the Couch in the Rube promo code CAW15. That's CAW 15 for $15 off for Couch and the Rube listeners. All right, more of your hot takes.
Ride Dog next. Number one, as the MSU football fan who started paying attention in 2010, this was the worst I have ever felt after a loss. 2, 24 hours later, I am now glad they lost. No false positivity heading into the offseason. The entire operation deserves heat. And 3, 24-hour later bonus take. It's like Wales was starving for a tie. Ties in sports are ass.
So the Wales-U.S. game was ass today. The way it finished, the U.S. was so good in the first half, and to have that end the way it did with the really dumb penalty by the U.S. defenseman and Gareth Bale getting the penalty kick, it sucked. It sucked, and it was deflating and demoralizing, and I was trying to write, too, on a NAS. We had a deadline for our Thanksgiving print edition was on a Monday, believe it or not, because people, just like the prosecutor's office probably in Washtenaw County, people in newspapers don't always want to work on Thanksgiving. I don't know why. But anyway, off that tangent. We'll fix that in post. It sucked. They played so well, and I thought they were going to have 3 points, and it was really demoralizing.
Professor, if Jaden Akins stays healthy, he will be Big Ten Player of the Year next season. Bonus, driving in the snow is ass.
It's not fun. It's not great. Big Ten Player of the Year next season. Yeah, I mean, that's the trajectory they're hoping. They're hoping he's that kind of player. Now, there's a long way to go. Right now, he's a he's not starting now, and I wonder if they'll just keep him as like a super sub 6-man and convince him of that role. He's playing a lot of minutes, and it'll be interesting to see what they do there in the lineup as the year goes on. But that they think he has that kind of potential, certainly.
Steve, number one, the fullback position should be reintroduced to the coaching staff. 2, Jaden Akins' dunk crowd reaction was the loudest in a while. His zone was old school all night. And 3, Jeep truck guy passing everyone on the snowy road and ends up in a ditch is perfect karma.
I do enjoy that. I have to say that. When you see somebody just being a jackass on the road and weather that's white knuckling it, and then you see them off the side of the road. You don't want them to be hurt, but you're like, you know what?
Driving their F-350.
Deserved.
By you.
Deserved. Yeah, no, definitely. That Aikens dunk was something. And it was a cool. I mean, I always feel good for MSU fans when they get a home game like that. Villanova and Breslin, like, I know the weather was shitty and it was Friday night late. People had to drive in from distances, but those aren't home games they get all that often at Breslin.
Room temperature takes. Do we need to be more cautiously optimistic about this MSU team? In December 2020, after we beat Duke, we were ranked top 10, and a MSU reporter was ready to hang a banner. Last year, we were top 10 in December and January before falling off a cliff.
I don't know who that MSU reporter was, but yeah, it's one of my worst takes ever. This is very different for a few reasons. One, that Duke team was awful, and you remember where that season was? That was the pandemic season, so there were very few games before they played that. Nobody really knew if anybody was any good. There were no crowds. At this point, we've seen them play Gonzaga, Kentucky, and Villanova. Like, there's a sense of there's at least a baseline for who they are. And I also would not say they're a Final Four caliber team. When I look at this team, I think they have a real chance to be in the top 3 in the Big Ten, and they have a chance to be a top 5, 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. And they have a chance from there to realistically get to a Sweet 16. And on the right day, I think this team can play with anybody in the country because they have the guards to do so. So if they get to a Sweet 16 as a 5 seed and they're playing a 1, you never know. But that's who this team is this year. And then depending on the guys that come back and with that incoming class, you might have something special a year from now.
Atticus, HTX. MSU basketball is doing better thanks to departures of Dane Fife and Dwayne Stevens. Program needed to shake things up.
So what's interesting here is, and I don't think, like, Dwayne Stevens is an awesome coach. Like, it was great for that program for a lot of years. Tom Izzo has been very complimentary of his staff this year, more so than in some other years. But I think a lot of it has to do with the number of scouting reports of different types of teams they've had to deal with quickly and different guys doing it. And I think he's been surprised with them. Not surprised like they weren't good. Like, he knows these guys all. But he's liked the way they've been collaborative. And I think also they've had to lean on each other a little more. That's something he said today. I asked him about this very thing. And I think he's really happy with the whole way it's working. The guy they brought in from Northwestern, he's liked a lot. I mean, I think he likes his group right now. He likes the team. And the fact that he's got a more mature team. He had a funny line today that he didn't mean to be funny, but it told you everything. He was talking about Mady Sissoko. He said he's like a sponge. And you tell him anything, and he'll listen. He goes, and it's different than some other guy. And he stopped himself short, and he just said some other guys. He was clearly talking about Marcus Bingham. He spent like 4 years trying to get Marcus Bingham to do certain things. And now you have a guy like Mady Sissoko who you tell to do something once, and he listens. And I think that's making a big difference to his happiness.
Ryan Rockwell, number 1, not having a definitive star benefits MSU hoops. 2, sad to see MSU struggle with special teams when that hasn't been a concern recently. And 3, MSU football needs less commercials and something to encourage fans to come to late season games. Not blowing 17-point leads would help that too.
Yeah, let's the hoops thing with no star, like, not having a definitive star helps if you've got enough guys who are really, really good, who don't fear the moment and have matchup advantages at times. Like, not having a definitive star it's like teams that have depth but they don't have any good players either. I mean, this team has a number of guys. Like, there are a lot of teams that you say, well, they don't have a go-to guy, and that's a problem. This is a team that I look at Tyson Walker, I look at A.J. Hogard, and I think both those guys with the ball in their hands late are good decisions. Malik Hall's shown some things there, and Joey Hauser with his shooting certainly. We'll see what Aikens becomes, but there's a lot of potential there, and there's no fear. That's the thing. They're not a team that looks like they're afraid of that moment, and that's a big deal.
Ron Quixote next. Number 1, Peyton Thorne is not the main problem. He's a B- quarterback, but he gets the majority of the Twitter heat. Michigan is proving you can win with a very average quarterback if you make timely plays and get stops. and have the refs ignore some offensive pass interference calls and drop passes in critical spots. 2, ultimate sadness insurance for patriotic. What? Spartans Lions fans is playing plus 600 if anyone is interested. Sports have hurt me enough this fall. I might as well make a profit. I got Bills minus 420, England, whatever that is.
Minus 180. Yep.
Michigan plus 245, and Penn State minus 1250.
So it pays plus 600. I don't know that I would. Yeah. Michigan plus 245. So you're going the other way on that game. So it's all your misery and you're parlaying them. I don't love the bet. I'll be honest with you. I don't love the bet even if you were trying to avoid sadness. Like individually I can understand each one, but I don't think that's going to hit as a parlay.
PMCK, number 1, it's fair to criticize Peyton Thorne's play, but not to suggest he was a major factor in losing to Indiana. 2, it's not fair to call for backups to start unless you have information the rest of us don't. I understand the desire to see what they can do. And 3, caw.
I do think there is something to that. I mean, look, the first thing I've heard about from anybody from Noah Kim was I talking recently about? There was a receiver talking about Noah Kim. I mean, the people like Noah Kim, I think, on that program. But I also think that we don't see what happens there. And I just cannot believe a coaching staff would ever not play the best dudes, especially if the team knew they were the best guys. Now, it could be a problem. There are two separate arguments here. It is fair to say that if the level of play that Peyton Thorne has been throughout this year is your best quarterback, that doesn't suffice. But there have been a lot of worse quarterbacks at Michigan State and throughout college football. I think Peyton Thorne's an above-average quarterback. I do. I think he's an above-average college quarterback. And now that may not be enough to get this sort of roster where it needs to go, and it's certainly not enough to guarantee you're the guy next year, because if somebody can surpass that level and he doesn't surpass that level, then you should look elsewhere.
Spartan 18770, number 1, Mel Tucker is on the hot seat starting November 27th. 2, Jay Johnson will be fired at season's end and be replaced by Jeff Thorne. 3, Keon Coleman over the summer will announce that he will forego football and concentrate on basketball after helping Izzo get his 9th Final Four.
Won't happen. Keon knows his money is in football. Like, Keon Coleman has a chance to be a, first, second, or third round pick, and defenses are already bringing the attention to him. I mean, he's a 6'4", 200-pound receiver. He's got all the tools. Like, that guy his money is bread is buttered in football.
Sparky McCune, number 1, senior day should be the homecoming game, not a balls cold day in late November. 2, there were more snowmen than actual men in the stadium on Saturday. And 3, WTF was Herb Street wearing on game day? Went off the deep end on Western Chic. And bonus, kids are fun.
That's your line, Jason. Kids are fun.
Kids are ass.
The homecoming thing's an interesting. The senior day should be on homecoming. Yeah, I guess you could do it then when it's not because it is always just this balls ass cold day late in the year. Small fan turnout, and it's not as pleasant. But also, you're supposed to be honoring late in the year. Think about transfers or seniors. It could be their fourth overall game, and you're honoring them on senior day, and they barely played. I think you got to keep it where it is.
The Danimal, number 1, I am no longer convinced that Tuck is the guy, but we have no choice but to give him another 2 years minimum to see what these recruiting classes can do. 2, we will get some suspended players back this week and bounce back and beat Penn State. 3, MSU basketball will make the Final Four this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Tucker thing is a reasonable thing. You got to give him 2 more years. And really, that 2025 year, which is 3 more seasons before – I mean, that's what you're paying for. And if that drives you nuts, I mean, some of the stuff is, if he had gotten that initial recruiting class, if Mark D'Antonio retires on Thanksgiving and Mel Tucker gets that first class, it's a little different. But he didn't. And then the pandemic hit. And so some of this does lay on D'Antonio in terms of the timeline of when it's fair to judge Mel Tucker.
Matt Drolette, number 1, beginning to think that maybe Tucker and his staff aren't good coaches. 2, inversely, Tom Izzo. Just awesome. And 3, if you can't appreciate Graham Couch talking about Keon Coleman, then seamlessly transitioning to an ad about a donut, you don't appreciate broadcasting gold.
I appreciate you, Matt. I do remember that. It was not anything but seamless, but I do absolutely appreciate you. I understand the idea that you just don't think they're good. I mean, they had a horrible game this last weekend, and so it's fair to be critical, and certainly the emotion of that. And they're going to have to prove it to people over time that they are the right people for this job, and I'm not sure all of them will be.
Hey, Kirk Cousins chains next. This loss was the most deflating since D'Antonio's Illinois disaster. What assistant deserves to stay after that shit show? At a bare minimum, Ross Ells, who runs special teams, must go. If no changes are made this offseason, the fan base will start to turn on Tuck.
Again, if he has a nice recruiting class in December and February, I think people will hang in there. I think that's the bigger thing. There's going to be a change. This staff won't come back intact. I would find that very unlikely. I cannot believe. And L's, certainly special teams has struggled, and he's the special teams coach. And you can say, well, he's not the only guy in charge of recruiting the kicker, but that's been a problem. That Jack Stone, the freshman kicker, wasn't quite ready to be the guy, and then you've got the injury at the long snapper position, and that hasn't gone great at all times. And so some of it's not in your hands, but ultimately the buck stops with the coaching staff.
JD, number one, I keep seeing people say they don't want to see a 13th game for this team based on Saturday's train wreck. I'd say Tucker is one of those people. 2, Saturday's game is why Graham is wrong about waiting to fire coaches. Continued stupid mistakes from these coaches have impeded the team's progress.
Yeah, I mean, I'm somebody who doesn't really believe in doing it midseason unless you really think they are the problem. But it also, that's instability. I just don't see the value in creating that instability when you're trying to build something unless you're sure that's it. And unless you're really, like, if you're a program that's trying to win at the highest, like you've got a chance that year to win at the highest level and it's not happening, that's different if it's like your season. But that's not where MSU is, and I think Mel Tucker was more aware of that than he let on at the beginning of the year.
Thomas, whatever that last name is, take one and only one. I know that he's a Spartan legend, and this is blasphemy to some, but George Blaha is unlistenable. Most of the time, the listener has no idea what's happening on the field or court. Please retire, George.
So he does Pistons TV, though, right? So you're watching the game on TV. You don't need him there. I think he's fine in the Pistons. I don't listen to the Spartan broadcast. I'm at the game. Do you ever still listen to the Spartan broadcast on radio?
No.
Okay. No. Yeah, I mean, I've heard other people complain, too. I love Blaha, and so
but I mean, if I'm going to talk shit about Corso, I mean, Blaha is a legend of mine. I love Blaha, but I don't hear it but I don't hear the Michigan State broadcast because on radio it means more to have your play-by-play guy telling you what's
actually happening, right?
So,
no,
like you said, the Pistons are on TV, so
yeah, no, and I'm not gonna. I mean, Blaha, like, to me, I get a little star-eyed around Blaha.
I would remove myself from the discussion if we were talking about getting rid of Blaha.
Yeah, me too.
I don't want any part of this. You guys handle it.
Like, I mean, there are very few people in this world. We're talking like Ron Banks, people know from Sexton High School, 1996. Like John Elway, George Blaha. It's a small list, so I'm not in a good position to judge here.
Kyle, number one, your college football team will never make you happy, ever. Not even Ohio State fans are happy. 2, I envy those who have no interest in sports. And 3, pain and sadness.
My wife has no interest in sports, but I don't envy that. That
would be complete ass.
Yeah, I don't know what I would think about or what I would do.
Sports are fun.
Yeah, I mean,
this sounds gambling related.
That's possible. And I've
said the same things. I go, sports are ass.
Yeah, let me do something else. And there are times where I lose enough on you lose a few bets and you're like, let's watch a show. I don't need sports. And I will say that I did enjoy. I wouldn't mind like a once every 6-7 year sabbatical like professors have. Like I enjoyed one stretch of the pandemic doing a lot of like restaurant stuff, and it was just different. It was fun. It was a new beat, and I did enjoy being away from it for a little bit. But ultimately this is, I couldn't do it.
Ken Chu, number one, 17 points is the worst lead in football. 2, MSU football always gets the critical win versus Penn State. And 3, hats off to MSU women's soccer. Great season. Damn that crossbar.
That was tough to watch that end. They gave up a really stupid goal early where they just didn't defend, and then late with a flurry of goals didn't get it done in that NCAA tournament game against TCU. They don't always get the critical win versus Penn State. I mean, I remember being like in the 90s seeing a couple games where they really could have used that win and didn't get it, and there have been other times. But I don't think, Penn State is beatable. They're just playing a lot better than Michigan State right now. So it's just hard to imagine it happening.
Ben, who is a longtime listener, first-time hot taker. Number one, this is the worst loss of the Tucker era. Senior day, bowl eligibility, momentum all lost due to poor coaching.
Two.
These are all the same. I'm tired of the keep chopping and we didn't execute. It's week effing 12. If execution is still a problem, then we have something seriously wrong with this coaching staff's teachings. The keep chopping stuff is just getting annoying at this point.
I can certainly understand that from people. I mean, it's look, these 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds believe in this shit, and it works to some degree. Like the idea of you just put your head down and keep going. You don't, no matter what, is
I know,
is a
but
great
it's
idea.
just a hacky bit. Like it's it didn't work out. Like it's not good. Even if the team was winning, I'd just be like, all right,
Yeah, well,
the chopping thing out.
And, it's always. I heard an NFL player say it the other day, and I thought, boy, somebody's using it on grown men. Like that to me is weird. Like whatever, it's fine, but I wouldn't want to be. I'm not saying it makes you mentally small to. I should get out of this because I'm not gonna. But I wouldn't. You shouldn't need that.
Cockburn.
DC Spartan next. Number one, new word for sweat equity. Swequity. At least we'd hear you say something different for a change, Graham. Two, maybe if you do another column on the backup long snapper, he'll be able to snap 3 more good balls. You're a jinx, dude. Seems his gas tank ran out of good snaps again. 3, given how close Michigan was to losing to Illinois, no matter how they lose to Ohio State next weekend, they should not make the playoff.
It'll get really interesting if Michigan is the losing team and there's a one-loss TCU out there, and the other thing that could happen is I guess LSU could win the SEC still and take another spot there. So there's still some things that can happen. But I certainly, even if they get in, I would like the committee to say in that circumstance that they got in because there wasn't another one-loss team that was better, but holy crap, that schedule almost cost them it. Don't do that again. Like I want that message to be sent.
Lakeside 2000, non-Indiana game thoughts. Having just watched Michigan and Ohio State barely squeak by Illinois and Maryland, the competitive balance in the Big Ten is closer than people think. MSU should be able to fare better against these teams. Mental edge plays a big factor.
Yeah, I mean, there are times where it is actually a lot closer than you think. And for all the ideas that the East is way, way better, we see moments where you're reminded these college kids who are dialed in aren't that different some days. I saw Ohio State the year they were down 1 wideout, and they still had an NFL wideout, and Justin Fields struggle against Northwestern in the Big Ten championships. Sometimes it's really not as far as it looks, but look, ultimately the repetitiveness of Ohio State winning the league though is tells a different story.
Carl Mylock, number one, Hunter Dickinson is the biggest douchebag in all of college sports. He needs to be humbled. 2, said it once, I'll say it again. MSU hockey is back. Impressive win on the road at Penn State this weekend. MSU makes the NCAA tournament. And 3, this weather sucks, and you can't convince me otherwise.
I wouldn't try, Carl. Although I will say Stringer Bell was wrong. He said the 40-degree day, is just a forgettable day. 40 felt great today. And part of the reason I think the weather was so hard on people this last couple weeks at Spartan Stadium is we went so fast from 73 down that it was a shock to the system a little bit. The MSU hockey story is amazing. I went for a column I was working on today, looked at they have 49 goals through 14 games. They haven't had that in 15 years, since 2007, 2008 when they were like 26, 11, and 5 on the year and were number 9 in the pairwise. They're number 11, I think, in the pairwise now, or 12, right around there. Either way, they would be in if the season ended today, and they are beating really good teams. And so to be 10-4-1 over there, I mean it's an impressive, or whatever it is. It's an impressive start, and the way they're scoring is just different than anything they've done since I've been covering the program.
David Wincher, number one, there's a very strong case for firing Mel Tucker. He doesn't have the team ever looking prepared, let alone horrible game management. 2, neither Michigan nor Ohio State will look like a strong playoff team, even though one of them is guaranteed a spot. And 3, USA will beat England.
Oh man, that would be fun. I think USA's got a chance to be in the game. It just England's got a lot of firepower, for sure. I don't think there's a case for firing Mel Tucker. I just don't. You got to have more patience than that. The next guy would look at you like, wait a sec, what? First of all, the school then would be on the hook for a ton of money too. So there's just not a case for that. And frankly, even if his contract wasn't what it is, you got to give a guy time. And I'm a big believer in that. And so if you don't, there are a lot of other people on the hook. The mismanagement goes up the chain if you don't give a guy time.
Tundra Dweller. Bottom line this right now. Silver lining here is that they won't lose a bowl game to the MAC at a Ford Field in December.
They still could get there at 5-7, but
they're not going to a bowl game if they're 5-7.
You would hope not. I don't want to go to that.
If I'm a player, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you turn that down.
Yeah, transferring. Lawrence Kearney, number 1. We have a good basketball team, and now Coleman and Carr can join early after the Saturday disaster. 2, Tucker has one more year before he gets the hardballs treatment with a big money contract reduction after the overreaction to the 11-2 season last year. 2, enjoy the post-game wrap-ups you and Solari do.
Appreciate you, Lawrence. Two good-looking guys. Might as well put us on camera, you know.
Zoom out at least. Why are you guys? Why is it such a tight shot? Like,
well, because I have to be somewhere where I can actually hit the camera. We don't. It's not.
I mean, the worst thing that happened during the pandemic was people on Zoom calls or whatever, and they're all just have the camera a fucking inch from their face.
It's not good. No,
like,
with us, we don't have a separate mic, so we need to be. And it's windy, so we got to be close. And I also have to be able to reach it to hit the start and stop on the record. So that's that.
Jesus.
We sort of get
Don't break down that fourth wall.
Yeah,
it's kind of sad. Jesus. Jason with an E. Number 1, 3 straight wins for the Lions. Other franchises would be thrilled. Here we sit, knowing that Goff is staying. No Stroud, no Young, just Goff.
Oh yeah.
2, I'll just end with, man, officials are complete ass. I cannot believe they can't be better. It seems to get worse every year with no accountability. We're held hostage with a garbage product we cannot stop watching. Add ice cream sandwiches, and man. Is he talking about
the game?
Football referees,
yeah, I don't know.
or basketball? Because
there are a few.
Michigan State shot 4 free throws against Villanova.
Yeah, I didn't think officiating was all that bad.
It's not, but you got to just call it throughout the game the way you want to call it. If you're going to call ticky-tack shit, do it all game.
They did have the Tyson Walker hesitation move they called travel on or whatever, a double dribble. And later, that
was terrible.
The official apparently just said, "Yeah, he got me too." Like it was that good. That's how good the move was.
Ha.
Double dribble. Yeah, it's
an apology. Lions fans get all the time. Jack Hagala. Good things happen when I attend sporting events. Last year, Kenny Walker versus Michigan, Game 6 of the World Series. Astros win, and Saturday night, South Carolina Gamecocks take down Tennessee, and we storm the field. Electric.
Jack was texting me late in this game, and I was with drunk Rex Road. It's quite a scene.
And
no,
that's the story.
That's the story not worth telling. Presented by Midtown Brewing Company,
showing that you have friends and you're name dropping.
Basically, that's what I got.
All right, Nick Palmer, number 1. What happens if Twitter goes away? No more questions. 2, my bad on submitting 4 questions late Wednesday. It won't happen again until the next time you ask for only 1. 3, with another tunnel incident at the Big House, we demand John U. Bacon devote his life to this and give us hourly updates.
Yeah, John U. Bacon's not going to be on that. That blog still cracks me up. It was
JUB.
What happens if Twitter goes away? For this show, we'll get a hold of you. We will find you. It's sort of like Vince Vaughn in Wedding Crashers when it was Amy Adams whoever plays his love interest. And I will find you. We will find you. That sounded creepy. Fix that in post if you would. But yeah, I did a thing. I tweeted out a thing for a newsletter.
What?
So I'm considering. My wife wants me to do this, and it is smart. We shouldn't rely on these third-party platforms to deliver our content. And so but what I was worried is if something really hits the fan with Twitter, and there's all sorts of things, like even like the idea that Apple would take it off their phones or whatever, all sorts of things that could go wrong. If it goes away, I don't want to lose track. So I have a newsletter sign up. At some point, I'm going to do a newsletter anyway. But
this is real.
This is real, and that would be. But for this purpose of this show, what we would do is we would just create an email that you'd email your hot takes into, and then we would do them that way or something like that. We would find a way. We'd still do the show.
Is your newsletter $3.99 for 2 years?
$399 for 2 years. Yes. And then it goes down to $1 for the life. You just got to get through the first. It's the opposite of the LSJ.
So what do I get in your newsletter? You just tweet your stories at me?
Basically, I haven't decided what it would be, but probably be like every morning would be like links would be this show too. It could be something else I've read, things like that. But yeah, it would not be anything extensive, but it would just be another way of getting things delivered to you. We could even do some places do like a text option. I'd look at that if people wanted it to.
Eric Larson, number one, I could get the job of setting over-unders for World Cup soccer games. They're all two. 2, most important World Cup game for USA is Monday. And 3, like women, snow is pretty to look at for a couple days, and then it's work.
I think Eric's a married man. Careful. But
lying.
the most of the world, unfortunately, it's a 1-1 draw. Could have gone worse. Most of them are actually 2.5, most of the over-unders, and it's all about the juice within them. But, yeah, I agree. Like, I made a lot of money on the Euros betting the unders. It was a weird way to watch soccer.
James Harden, number 1, a new special teams coach is now mandatory. 2, love me some Jaden Reed, but Keon Coleman is better. 3, MSU has the best 3 guards in America as long as Jaden Akins didn't re-injure his foot. And bonus, shout out to my wife for putting up with my screaming at the TV.
Appreciate your wife, absolutely. Although, did you see that clip online? You don't want to talk about other people's wives. Did you see that clip going around? It was the Fox, was it Fox or SEC Network pre or post game show where one guy brought up that
it was Ben Watson, wasn't it?
Yeah, joke about that's not what your wife texted me, and it looked like there was some serious.
Well, you have to, because I watched the clip and what do you do if you're Ben Watson though? You kind of have to say like, hey man, like
you can't do that.
Yeah. We're not that good of friends for you to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's not one of those things that works great on air in that setting.
Yeah, it's not like a mom joke.
Yeah.
Which, like, you don't know my mom anyway or whatever. So, and I could just do my mom's dead.
Yeah, and then you feel
bring the
awful.
fucking house down.
Right.
Those people that do that.
But
my uncle passed away 3 weeks ago. Like, all right, shit, I'm just trying to make a joke.
Yeah, they've got like 7 kids. Like, they're like, yeah, she just doesn't need. Yeah, it's not great. You got to be smarter in that situation.
Right. I think he handled it right, where you just came back from breaking. You pretty much knew. Matt Boone, number 1, MSU coaches can get packing. Bad management, bad play calling. Hope Mel Tucker doesn't D'Antonio it by not making the necessary changes. And 2, MSU is a basketball school. And 3, this feels like pre-D'Antonio MSU where we need basketball to cleanse ourselves from football.
I'll say this, though. You should be great. You have it better than anybody if you're an MSU fan, just about. Because it's not just that you've had 2 programs that have won at a pretty good level, and you care about hockey and some other things too, but really those 2. It is also that you care. It's not just because most schools, that's something that Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State will never have. They'll never be able to. I've seen tweets from Michigan fans are like, yeah, we don't care what's going on with the basketball team right now. It's football season. Michigan State fans would never say that. And that also, if something's going wrong with the football team, Michigan doesn't have the same they just don't have that to go to. And Ohio State fans don't have it to go to. Not with the same passion and intensity. And that's a real thing, an ability to deflect and find happiness in another sport.
Spartan Johnny, number 1, caw. 2, that inbounds pass by Joey Chestnuts looked like a goddamn Peyton Thornburger after attacked by Raccoon Graham. Dear God, son, my heart. And 3, a well-made burrito has to be one of the most pleasant tastes one can have in their mouth. Please discuss.
You a big burrito guy?
I don't know if I'm a big burrito guy, but I'm a burrito. I do enjoy a burrito.
Me too. I like a burrito. Who doesn't? I mean, I like a lot of.
I don't really treat food like that though. I'm not like a foodie. You know what I mean? Like you see in the commercials where a guy takes a bite out of a sandwich and looks at it and goes, mm-hmm. Like I'm not really. I enjoy food, but people like go next level. I'm
not really a foodie. I'm just kind of a glutton.
Well, when you eat it all, you can't really be a foodie. Foodies kind of have one
bite and
thing they like.
I mean. I have at least 20 pounds on me that's the fault of Sean Windsor. Like on the road, if you're traveling with Sean, he will order like 6 desserts. You're like, what the fuck's he doing? 6 desserts show up. He has like a bite of each. And then he like pushes them at you. He's like, I just wanted a taste. And he's got that sort of discipline. Meanwhile, my fat ass is like, okay. And I eat the dessert. Like it's not healthy. It's not good.
So is this out of Windsor's pocket, or is this
expense,
right?
Yeah,
because you're acting like he.
It's usually out of his pocket. He's on the same limitation. We all work for Gannett, so like we get a certain amount of per diem per day, and you lose on the road. You go to certain restaurants, it's coming out of your own pocket. You have to get really clever.
Andrew Gauthier, number one, I've never been more glad to have to work through a Spartan game. I was shocked to check my phone and see the game was tied after the 17-point lead. 2, if Joey Hauser changed his name to Joe and grew a goatee, he would have gotten a lot less shit through his MSU career. And 3, we don't want to hear it Dickie V, who in their right mind wants basketball to start later. Give me all the hoops I can get. Inject it into my veins. Let's go. Basketball's back.
Yep. Vital said it starts too early. It should start December 1st. And it used to. Like when we were kids, like early 90s, it was like Thanksgiving weekend would be the very beginning. Occasionally the Maui Invitational, things like that. But otherwise, everything was like December 1st, right around there. And I understand. The problem is, and Izzo said, and this was interesting, is the number of games they play now, and they're not going to reduce that because of the money. I think basketball probably would be better off starting December 1st. The problem is the Masters, and it's the CBS contract, and when they're bookended, they can't, the Masters, unless they move the Masters, and nobody wants that, like, it's got to end the weekend before the Masters. And so that's, so you've kind of got this boxed-in situation.
Chris Eastlick, number one, the amount of injuries this football season is ridiculous. 2, quality control needs to be at the top of the priority list this offseason. 3, Nick Baumgartner put it perfectly this weekend. MSU's offensive coordinators need to stop trying to play "we're tougher than you" offense just for the sake of doing it. Scheme to your personnel. You don't have to run into stacked boxes in obvious rundown. Stop it.
Their inability to get the 1 yard. And they finally ran a quarterback sneak, by the way, and it worked. Like, their inability to get the 1 and 2 yards when they need it and some of the plays they call is I think the greatest weakness of Jay Johnson and their offense this year. And some of it, yes, their offensive line falls apart in front of them certain times. But you got to know that's going to happen. And what you have is a number of playmakers at running back, tight end, and receiver who are pretty high-quality guys, pretty good players. And you got to find ways to use them in the passing game and use them more creatively.
Captain Dave, MSU. Number one, this team is defined by what it did or didn't do on 4th down. 2, Mel says everyone is accountable. Do coaches hold themselves accountable to the players? Was expecting to hear more caw-caw during the TV broadcast. And 3, Tuck squandering.
Does that become the T-shirt, Tuck squandering? I like it. Yeah, no.
So.
It does. Yeah, that's cool. Send one to Tucker himself. Here you go. Sound like hotcakes. Yeah, no, like I said, the 4th down.
Horseshit coach. Put that on there.
The 4th downs. Yeah, but see, that wasn't even a serious thing. Like, he doesn't give details on what he did. Yeah, I should. Like I said, was it last week? Izzo had a moment where. No, it was after the. No, I didn't say it because we haven't had a podcast since. But Joey Hauser has that bad inbounds play, and Izzo had a timeout to use and didn't use it. And right afterwards, Izzo said, "Yeah, I should have used my timeout there." Like those sort of things. Oh, okay. He should have. Yeah, absolutely. And he knows he should have. Everybody's cool with it. Yeah, he screwed that up a little bit. It didn't wind up costing him. You don't get that quite out of Tucker, and I think that's a frustration of fans.
DB, the lack of creativity on MSU's offense is maddening. Reminds me of the last few years of D'Antonio ball, making DC's job for the opposing team very easy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Michigan State's a hard team to stop on a lot of, but they've had some games where I thought things were clicking a little bit, and Jay Johnson was all right, and it just didn't feel like that certainly in the second half against Indiana. And there were a couple drives that Michigan State really needed to answer and have put together something, and it didn't happen.
Spike Hammersmith, number one, instead of paying Tucker, Ishbia could have paid 95 players $100K a year. Imagine the recruiting classes they would have if they just moved the money directly to the players. 2, Johnson calling a successful QB sneak, then going right back to his 4th down shotgun draw is hilarious.
Yeah, it was not great. There is something to this. I mean, you could argue that coaching salaries in the NIL era from donors and all this stuff should be $500K, and that the players should be making the money, and that you would absolutely be able to win. Now, would you have the type of grit you need? Would you automatically, like if Like, if every player is making a lot of money and they're not that good, does that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's as simple as that, but there's an argument that the payment balance needs to be shifted. Let's take one more break. We've got Max Spade, Doug Warren, Eric Smith, Steve Beckman, Alex James, Kirk Wisniewski, Gavin Haas, Shep, Rich Shearing, Sparty 95, and more. More of your hot takes. Couch in the Rube, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis and Muskox high-quality flannel.
Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask & Company Kitchen Bar or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. 2 amazing places with one awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask & Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. Ever wondered just how comfortable you can be? Find out with Muskox high-quality flannels. Muskox is a Detroit-based company that creates durable comfort that'll last a lifetime. Muskox flannels are thoughtfully designed with 100% cotton that is ethically sourced and double brushed for softness. This will be the softest flannel you'll ever buy, guaranteed. For every $100 purchase, Muskox will donate $10 to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. Get comfortable this fall and winter with Muskox flannels. Learn more or order yours today at gomuskox.com.
When it's your moment, that once-in-a-lifetime moment, you don't just want jewelry. You can get that anywhere. You want a memory that will go down in history, your moment. We're Metawar, crafted with exquisite style, quality, and love, so your present will be stunning every time you look at it, every time someone notices it, and they will notice. We've devoted our lives to this art, and we're proud to share it with you. The gift you want to give is here.
Metawar Jewelers in Lansing, Okemos, Jackson, Portage, and Brighton.
Firekeepers Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play. Get your Vegas on right now from your phone, tablet, or laptop. All the hottest slots and tables, plus sports betting featuring in-game wagering. Download the app at firekeeperscasino.com. Go with the name you know. Firekeepers. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Wherever you are on your cannabis journey, let Skymint Premium Cannabis be your guide, your friend, and your place. Whether you're curious about cannabis or a seasoned connoisseur, Skymint's knowledgeable staff will help you with a vast selection of products to choose from to fit your needs. Skymint believes access to the best cannabis helps people do good and feel good, so they grow it right here in Michigan, giving you high-quality, locally grown cannabis at highly accessible prices. Visit skymint.com for special offers and location information throughout Michigan, and use the promo code CouchAndRube20 for 20% off your first visit. Skymint Cannabis. You'll love this place. Come enjoy irresistible, award-winning, handcrafted donuts and locally roasted coffee at Groovy Donuts. Surprise your family or coworkers with special holiday designs and flavors, or put the perfect finishing touch on an event with a custom order. Birthdays, weddings, gender reveals, our friends at Groovy Donuts are your answer. Experience the Groovy Donuts difference for yourself on Lake Lansing Road in East Lansing or in Williamston. Get more information or place an order at groovydonuts.com.
Find our live stream, podcast archives, as well as show, affiliate, and sponsorship information at our website, spotlightmediastudios.com.
Couch in the Rube, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis, on our Monday night show, brought to you by our friends at Muskox high-quality flannels. Visit gomuskox.com and use the promo code CAWCAW15 for $15 off, and you too can look as good as I do in this this flannel. It's comfortable as hell too. So, all right, let's dig back into your hot takes.
Max Spade next. Number one, I'm an MSU head coach apologist and proud of it. Most Fire the Coach folks couldn't run the 8th grade B team at their local middle school, much less a Big Ten football or basketball corporation. At the same time, my MSU youth was defined by heartbreaking losses, and I have been taking heart the last few years that we haven't dropped that low until Saturday, when all 3 units took a shit during the second half Saturday. It wasn't an indictment of play calling or scheme or special teams prep. It was an indictment of mindset. Mindset starts and ends with the head coach.
No, it's fair. It's a fair criticism of Mel Tucker. When you lose a 24-7 lead at halftime, you didn't come out of the halftime ready. And I've seen it reversed at Michigan State. Remember the weather game with the Penn State years ago when there was like a 3-hour delay, and that went the other way. Michigan State used the delay better, I think, and it looked like the more prepared team coming out of that than James Franklin's squad. So maybe they'll get lucky this week with another James Franklin team, but there's no question that Michigan State was not the more prepared team in the second half.
Doug Warren, number 1, this is the most dominant Detroit Lions rushing attack in 25 years. 2, the Lions will draft Michael Penix Jr. Next April. And 3, Elijah Collins will be part of the NFL running back rotation someday.
Collins has some talent that I think gives him a chance. That's interesting to hear Doug say that because Doug's a football guy. And so Michael Penix.
He's a historian.
Yeah. Michael Penix is a Lions quarterback. Obviously not a first-round pick, but if he was like a second-round pick, would you be interested?
Oh, like, absolutely.
Yeah, he's got an NFL arm for sure.
Eric Smith, number 1, kind of feeling like this is going to be a long couple of years until buying out Tucker's contract becomes more reasonable. 2, every time I see Jim Harbaugh on TV, I change the channel quickly so everyone around me. Didn't someone already say this one?
This one we may have done Eric's twice. I apologize. Yeah. We did these already. Apologize, Eric.
Steve Beckman, caw. 2, caw. 3, would you have called as many offensive plays out of a shotgun as MSU did against Indiana? I definitely wouldn't.
It seems to be their go-to. I'm hoping tomorrow, it's like the last midweek press conference of the season, that Jay Johnson will be the choice for the assistant coach that they bring. Last week I was thinking it was going to be him. It was Ephraim Reed. Good conversation. But Jay Johnson's the offensive coordinator, and we haven't talked to him in a long time, so I'm hoping Jay Johnson is around tomorrow, and these are questions that will be asked.
Alex James, number 1, Jay Johnson deserves to be punted by Bryce Behringer. Hazelbeard is back on the shit list as well. 2, someone is making $575,000 to coordinate that special teams unit. Let that sink in for a moment. And 3, thank God MSU Hoops has some juice to remind us this is a basketball school.
$575K to coordinate special teams. I think I could do it. Don't you? If somebody paid you $575K, you'd figure it out.
I would take it. Yeah.
But you figure it out.
It'd be a shit show.
Yeah,
it'd be exactly what. I mean, it couldn't be any worse, I don't think. I mean, yeah, it's possible, but I doubt it.
You might be right. It's not been good.
Kirk Wisniewski, number 1, I still believe in this team and Tucker. We will win next weekend against Penn State. 2, this loss is shouldered by the offensive coordinator and special teams coach. And 3, reminiscent of the game plan against Michigan. First half, defense and offense on point. Shit the bed in the second half. Putrid.
And I think that's the frustrating part, is there's some repetitive themes that are happening to this team, and people have a right to be upset about it.
Gavin Haas, number 1. MSU is a basketball school. Unserious coaching on the football side will always prove this true. 2, I was wrong with my question last week. MSU's basketball season is determined by their guard play, not Matty Sissoko, and that makes me extremely hopeful. 3, so I may or may not have a take about one-loss Tennessee. Had to delete that take. Anywho, it seems as if the loser of Michigan versus Ohio State will be in the playoff unless USC wins out.
Yeah, and look, I don't hate that. If they're part of the 4 best teams, I'm okay with that too. I mean, that's the idea, right? Is until we get to 12, which is going to be great, you get the 4 best. And if they're the 4 best, let's see what Michigan does against Georgia this year. See if it looks different. See if they've grown at all.
Shep, number 1, inexcusable for Tuck to put the team in a position where even by mistake they could run the ball outside the hash on 3rd down. Every moron knows that when you are playing for a short field goal, you run right between the tackles to center the field goal versus one from the wide hash. The drunkest, dumbest guy you know knows this. 2, you were talking about the decline of the urinal trough. I don't know what that word is. Something Stadium in Pittsburgh, formerly known as Heinz Field, still has troughs. And bonus, at least the Hoop Squad is fun to watch. Takes some of the sting off.
I got some messages last week from people who also appreciate troughs. I'm not alone in my love of troughs. I prefer the trough.
Well, you guys can look at each other's mules then.
Well,
I'll load it into one trough.
Well, it's you know.
Hey, how's it hanging?
You know what doesn't happen at troughs? Because people, like, you go to a McDonald's off the turnpike, right? And you go in and people pissed all over the floor all the time. Like, people can't, somehow men cannot pee in a urinal without peeing all over the place. It's all around your feet and everything. at a trough, you tend not to have the excess urine at your feet. So I get another win for the troughs.
Rich Searing, number one, same team and coaches as 2 weeks ago, and we beat Illinois, and Tuck was awesome for refocusing the team. Then Indiana happened, and he sucks again. Fans drive me crazy. 2, why can't we hit a 20-yard field goal? Time to hard recruit a kicker. And 3, in spite of the Indiana debacle, we have been playing better, so I can't help but wonder if some of those suspended players were part of the problem all along.
Well, I think their absence to some degree also hurt this week. I mean, you face a team that's got a mobile quarterback, and that was something that Xavier Henderson brought up, just the idea that and Henderson's a guy that I listen to greatly. Like I'm going to miss Xavier Henderson next year. It doesn't matter what the coaches say or anything else. He comes in and he just gives you truth serum. And he said, I think it was him who said something about the defensive end, the lack of defensive ends they had hurt them in a game like this against a mobile quarterback. So I don't think it did help in this circumstance.
Sparty 95. Number one, Mel Tucker and Ross Ells have had all season to figure out how to execute short field goals that a competent high school team can make. They haven't. That's not something that calls for patience or getting Tucker's recruits in place. That's basic coaching competence. 2, I thought Kohler gave MSU solid minutes off the bench Friday, knew where to be, what to do with the ball, and did not hurt them. He looked like a competent backup. Not a lot of offense, but made a nice pass when they threw it down to him on the block.
I think Kohler's taken some strides. I think he's been humbled a little bit, and you can see his talent. Now the problem is they've got to find ways to get him the ball offensively, because once he can do some things off, I think he's a guy who can help them offensively, gives them a different look. And he's not a great defender yet. So the idea when he's in the game, yes, he doesn't give you what Sissoko does in certain aspects, but he should be a guy that you can play through a little bit and do some other things, and they need to find a way to work that through. And I do think December is going to be an important month, because you're kind of who you are right now. This weekend, then Notre Dame, then Northwestern, Penn State. Then you got the Brown, Oakland, Buffalo over 3 weeks. That's a time to sort of rework some things and try to get some other guys in different roles.
Ryan Schultz, number one, fuck Tuck. We've seen teams with modest talent and good coaching before, and this team ain't it. I'm worried we're about to spend a ton of time, money, and emotion on a guy who has no clue of what he's doing. 2, number 10 should have just played in his last game as a Spartan. Same for number 93. 3, I'll be happy to eat crow about Tucker and Sissoko, but Friday night from Maddie did sort of look like water finding its level.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sissoko's going to have those games, but I also think, when you put the 2 games he put back to back, I think he's a guy who also will play up to other people, but he's going to have trouble dominating anybody, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that makes sense. But in other words, he can play up to an All-American, but if you're just a regular Joe, he's not going to dominate you either. So I think he's kind of that guy, if that makes any sense.
DBM, number 1, gotta love Couch taking a shot at the fans for that unacceptable coaching performance. Half the state was in blizzard, while the other half was hunting. Most sane people wouldn't have paid to sit through that. 2, any of the journalists gonna FOIA for police reports, ask some questions, etc. Several starters missing. A third of the season for what? Must be nice to just sit around and tweet for a salary. 3, Mark D'Antonio would have won that game 17-3 and put us all to sleep. I miss those days. And bonus, the Quick Lane Bowl. We should not have bonuses this deep in the show. The Quick Lane Bowl would have been a nice holiday treat for an apathetic fan base looking to party in Detroit for the day. Thanks, Mel.
Yeah, a couple things here. One, there will be things that, as this comes out, if we're not getting the full story and whatnot, there will be absolutely FOIAs. This is not going to be something people are sitting on once the investigation and decisions are made. People aren't just sitting around. I mean, I know it looks like that sometimes, and we do spend an awful lot of time on Twitter, and that's sometimes a fair criticism. There are a lot of journalists who spend too much time on Twitter and don't do enough actual journalism, and occasionally I've been guilty of that myself. And look, the shot at the fans wasn't. I remember Northwestern earlier this year. I thought they lost to Duke because it looked like nobody was there and nobody cared, and that's just such a deflating thing. And I'm not saying I would not have been out there either. It's a shit weather situation. It's misery. I'm just saying that I don't think helped in that second half. If the first half crowded, I'll say this. If the first half crowd had been there the entire second half, Michigan State wins that game.
Seth, next. Number one, I don't blame the Rube for needing an extra day to recover from that disgrace of a football team in East Lansing. 2, I didn't know Ronald McDonald was the special teams coordinator at Michigan State. Shoot his no-name ass to the moon. 3, if Mel doesn't pick up the recruiting, I can't keep defending this on-field malpractice. This year has just ruined everything I thought of Mel as a coach.
I think that's the hard thing for people is they thought they'd struck gold, and they don't feel like that. They don't feel like that right now. That's what it is. We'll see if you can turn that perception around.
Todd Trusadell next. Number one, people are in good place with his team, to quote Graham Couch. Really? What people? Not me. This is a classic John L. season, and I agree next year will be worse. 2, nobody hunts in Southeast Michigan. That's actually not my take. That is a dig on Couch because he thought Spartan Stadium had a good crowd on Saturday. Probably a quarter of the crowd was in Ann Arbor. This is a product issue. If we were playing for a title, that stadium would be full.
That's fair. Michigan it would be interesting to see Michigan Stadium if they were 5-5 and playing that game. So yeah, you're right. It absolutely has something to do with the product. And I'm not. It does feel like a shot at the crowd. I'm just trying to say what I think is reality. I've said a million times I would not be out there. There's no way in hell I'm sitting through that. Not in this day and age with the comfort of televisions and Skyman.
PHBA, number one, Kenneth Walker couldn't have masked all those flaws. This team has genuinely deteriorated since last year. 2, tunnel problems are a legit issue at Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to do something down there construction-wise if they can't figure out the logistics. It's not that hard. They're going to have to do some construction underneath. They don't need to create another tunnel. Just get rid of the bottleneck.
Tyler, number one, and this MSU team is so fucking bad. They have 2 or 3 losses so far if they played Michigan's schedule. 2, Jason, did you see Dickinson call a 20-point win for Michigan versus Arizona State? 3, can you do a brief overview for the Oregon tournament for MSU basketball?
I'll have a story. I mean, it's a good field, and Michigan State could get Oregon or UConn, and then they could get Villanova again. There's a lot of different ways that field could go. It's late night game, so be prepared for that. They could play it late as midnight on Friday night local time here. So be ready for that. Did you see Hunter Dickinson?
No.
He basically predicted they were going to beat Arizona State by 20, and then they got freaking housed. That was not a great.
Where?
On a podcast.
Oh, who cares?
Yeah. Nobody listens to these things.
I can't blame anyone. Number one, this show ought to be good. Should we play Spin Zone and Caw-Caw music in the background like elevator music? 2, was Jason sick because he was celebrating the Lions or fearful of the Spartan backlash? 1 Sky Mint gummy for every Lions point was not smart. 3, Patton's kick for Auburn was from the right hash. Every left-footed kicker says they prefer the right hash. MSU used the left hash. Go figure. Ross Ells is in over his head because special teams are a special disaster.
That play was designed to go to the middle. They were trying to center that, and Elijah Collins, freelanced, and that's where that went wrong. That one is not necessarily on Ross Ells. Now, you could say, just take a knee. Just guarantee you're in the absolute middle of the field.
Curtis Cakeley, number one, lock in a first-round game versus Eastern Michigan in a second weekend rematch against Kentucky. We all know the committee loves a good storyline. And 2, yes, college football commercial breaks are bad, but have you ever heard pregame on the Spartan Radio Network? He didn't got it. He don't got it.
Yes, they do love a storyline. I can absolutely see Michigan State playing Amani Bates. I do not think Eastern Michigan, though, wins the MAC. And I've seen teams like that with one big star that don't wind up being all that good, even though they got a guy who puts up 25 a game in that league. I don't think they win it.
He got it! Some dude, number one, mid-morning college hoops in South Korea is not ass. 2, you guys should do a live show from here. There are fucking crows everywhere, and the food is insane for Graham. 3, actual hot take. Tom Izzo is the single greatest major sports coach that the state of Michigan, college or pro, has ever had. While coaching here, consistency, longevity, high levels of success.
Yeah, you could argue that. I'm trying to think of anybody who'd be longer. Sparky Anderson, no. Yeah, you can make that. Chuck Daly, I mean, there's some guys, but longevity certainly you can make that argument.
Tyrone Couch, number one, MSU is Northwestern after that meltdown. 2, Fox Sports app is still shit. I had to sit through the whole game with fast forward and finished at 7 p.m., wondering why my Michigan Slappy family kept calling. 3, having braces and not being able to eat popcorn is ass. And 4, my wife is hot.
Braces are ass. I had them for a couple years. Sucks. Just sucks. Just get through it, and your teeth will be better for it.
Couch on fire, number 1. When the field goal went left at the end of regulation, I let out a big caw, and Indiana coach running around like he won the Super Bowl was the topper. 2, agree on your article about Coleman getting with the basketball team in December now. They may need him. And 3, props to the new hockey coach.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you need another reason besides Skyman, another way to get out of thinking about football, I would get yourself a nice muskox flannel, get yourself out to Mun Ice Arena, get an ice cream cookie sandwich, and enjoy what's going on there.
Rick Racked. I love Solari and Spartan speak, but he's making it unlistenable. Let Graham get in a complete sentence without interrupting him.
Yeah, I mean, we do sometimes talk over each other on it. It's not our strength. It's one of the things I love about Jason here is that we never talk over each other. We just
try not to.
Yeah. We've got pretty good
but you and Solari are both long-winded, so it's not very, you know what I mean? Like Solari needs to know, you both need to know when each other's going to stop. I don't know.
Yeah, we're a little bit competitive talkers, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it doesn't. But he does talk more than me, and he talks. There have been, I'm not kidding, there have been times it goes like 7 minutes. I will mute myself, go get coffee, come back, and then listen to the end and then chime in.
Mike Scott, 2.5 takes. 1, Tyson Walker could be a first-team All-Big Ten performer. 2, Mel Tucker's team had such an embarrassing performance, he should give a cool $500K back to local charities. Good coaches don't lose games like that. Missed 22-yard field goal or not. And bonus, World Cup is back.
Tyson Walker, I think, his goal is all defensive team. I don't know if we'll see if he's consistent enough. If he has enough 20-point scoring days, absolutely. If he's a guy who's a menace on the defensive end and averages in the mid to upper teens, he'll have a chance.
Spartan Sugar, number 1, I agree with everyone. 2, giving up my tickets was fortunate because going would have been detrimental to my health for the hour-and-a-half drive back home. 3, instead I went to the Oakland Eastern basketball game, which was fantastic. Bates is overrated. Izzo dodged a bullet.
Yeah, I've got to check in on how Rocket Watts is doing. I haven't paid any attention to that either. I'm hoping he's doing all right at Oakland. I always liked Rocket Watts. I enjoyed interviewing him, enjoyed chatting with him, and was hoping he'd be around at Michigan State for a while.
Mr. Benjen, number 1, the previous 2 weeks were a dead cat bounce. Bye-bye, Scotty and Jay. Caw. 2, 60% of MSU starters opening a game next year will be different than who started Saturday.
If it's that much, I don't know if that's good or not. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the portal too, and because we've seen it, you can only do so much. It doesn't, every time they get these portal kids, it's like, oh, this kid from the SEC, oh, look at that, and they get a few that are really helpful, but you also get some guys who are just role player dudes and really aren't the answer.
Bo McJunkins, number 1, thank you, Jim Harbaugh and Warden Manuel and Michigan Police for suspending our players for so long for us. 2, the silence from the supposedly non-existent blue wall on Juwan Howard's third incident with his team fighting another team tells me all we need to know about their coverage. Tom Izzo yells at a kid and gets crucified, and Juwan continues to skate.
But it wasn't. It wasn't really when Izzo yelled at a kid and gets crucified. That wasn't really Detroit media. There were a few. There was the Nolan Finley Detroit News editorial, and there's outside of sports. That wasn't the sports folks who did that, and so I do think sometimes it's where that stuff was coming from. That was a lot of national angst at the time.
Neurotic Pants, number 1, in all seriousness, you should ask Tucker if he feels overpaid. I mean it. 2, Tucker should be able to recruit kickers, long snappers at any rate. I'd look to FCS or Division II if needed. For some reason, MSU is still appealing. 3, indifference kills ticket sales and hype move fast.
There is something to, if people aren't excited next year, and people love Michigan State football, they're going to show up. They're going to buy tickets. But you don't, and I think it'll be written as such, and people will sort of understand that next year isn't going to be a championship year, but he won't have much time after that before people there is an apathy, because apathy is the absolute worst, and it happened at the end of the D'Antonio era. There was anger a little bit, but late in the year there was apathy every year.
Corey Ostrom, number 1, Mel Tucker will let Scotty Hazelton go at the end of the season, replacing him with Marco Coleman and elevating BT Jordan to line coach. 2, the missed field goal in regulation didn't lose the game. The mismanagement of the situation by Tucker did. That deep in Indiana territory, you go for the touchdown, not set up a field goal. Use your weapons in Coleman and Reed.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to play it. I think I would have centered it. It's and the kick would have been good. The one argument for it isn't the kick there. 22-yard field goal dead on should go in. It's the snapper and their issues there.
Kenton, number 1, you should think that with 540 yards and 31 points on offense, that the offensive coordinator called a good game. But Jay Johnson only called one good play call on multiple 3rd and 4th and 1s. His first and only quarterback sneak for the year got a first down. All of the others that were not quarterback sneaks lost yardage again. And 2, thank God for MSU basketball.
I will promise you this, Kenton, and everybody else, and Dominic and everybody, that I will ask Scotty Hazelton about the lack of the quarterback sneak that they have that they used effectively there and have not used all year, because I think it's a valid question. I hope it's something we're able to ask tomorrow.
Hans Jurgen, number 1, the best part of my Saturday was jacking off in the morning. You? 2, this is the best MSU guard trio since Darryl Johnson, Scott Skiles, and Sam Vincent in 85. Not to be a jerk, but those guys lost in the first round. And 3, Sissoko went for Hakeem Olajuwon to Yinkadare. And bonus, do you assholes at the LSJ have to post pics of Indiana players with the old brass spittoon? I feel bad in my heart.
That was actually my choice of a pick. It sort of said the moment a little bit. So, Darryl Johnson, Scott Skiles, Sam Vincent. Do not remember that team. Remember the next year a little bit with Scott Skiles' earliest memories. But there have been some great talents that did not win a lot. You want to see Michigan State basketball in the 70s had guys who were unreal early 70s that those teams really didn't do anything.
Jake Hawkins. Number 1, I know MSU basketball is good. I've enjoyed the past 2 wins, but the part of me still wishes Christie would have stayed at least one more year. He probably would have worked himself into being a first-rounder. I know he wasn't necessary for this season, but one can dream, right? 2, I was only able to watch and listen to about 10% of the MSU Indiana game, including that missed easy chip shot field goal to force OT. And boy, am I ever so pissed. Tucker has to make coaching changes to his staff in the offseason, especially Ross L's terrible special teams play. And 3, you know you're getting old when a new song comes out in 2022 and uses the same melody and beat from a popular song that was out when you were in 8th grade. That's the case with the song I'm Good by David Guaretta and Babe, whatever her name is, uses the same beat from Blue Dot. What the fuck? I'm done with that.
Jake, I love you, man.
Yeah, you're great.
I don't know what that is. I don't. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Upper Deck Jerk Guy. Number 1, Mel Tucker may not be a good coach. He has a lot to work to do to regain his fan base. Who cares? What is this? I don't have to read these. 2, Tom Izzo may be a better coach than we thought. Maybe Hondo is onto something. Oh, good thing I read that one. Hondo mentioned. 3, Nightingale may be the second best coach at MSU.
The second best. Maybe he's the first best, the way things are going.
Coach my team.
Jason, impressive getting through that under the weather. I could tell you were struggling back there, and you made it.
Complete ass. 2 hours and 30 minutes.
We appreciate all of you, especially you, Upper Deck Jerk Guy, and Jake.
Appreciate Jake.
Yeah. Thank you all for producing our show. And we may have a show Tuesday night. We're gonna think about that. If not, happy Thanksgiving. But we'll talk about possibly doing one more before the break. We appreciate Muskox. Go to gomuskox.com. Use the promo code CAW15 for $15 off. Thank you to Skymint. Go to skymint.com. Check out location information, daily specials. Make Skymint part of your life. And frankly, if you're still listening, you obviously do. We appreciate Hopcat as well. Go to hopcat.com. Check out the nearest Hopcat location nearest you. And we will talk to you soon. Couch in the Roof. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.